Chapter 2401. The Red Flame mercenary group had the least number of people among the high-ranking mercenary groups. But in terms of individual combat ability, they were the strongest among the high-ranking mercenary groups. Therefore, even if the other mercenary groups were better than them in terms of numbers and overall strength, they didn't dare to offend them. Not to mention Guifeng's strength and reputation. Even in the whole Tianfeng region, he was an extremely powerful expert. Even the people from the Three Stars region came to recruit him. Liao Laosan originally relied on the fact that he was in the right to speak softly to the Red Flame mercenary group. At this moment, when he saw the Red Flame mercenary group defending Luo Qingtong, his face turned purple, but he didn't dare to make a move on Luo Qingtong. Humph, let her see. His face was full of ridicule. The Red Flame mercenary group was really desperate. They would listen to the words of a little beggar who suddenly appeared. He wanted to see what kind of waves they could make. Liao Laosan sneered in his heart. The Red Flame mercenary group's people indeed handed in the purple-blooded realgar grass. But the Black Iron group's people had already made an agreement with the mission sponsor. If this mission was completed, they would say that the other party brought the wrong medicinal ingredient, the purple jade grass, and the reward of this mission would be deducted. At that time, the sponsor's mission would be completed, and they would be able to get the corresponding reward. Wouldn't it be killing two birds with one stone? The one who would lose out was only the person who completed the mission. And this purple jade grass and the purple-blooded realgar grass were almost the same in appearance. Even the medicinal juice was almost the same. If one wasn't an alchemist or an alchemist, it would be difficult to distinguish the difference. Could it be that the little beggar in front of him was an alchemist or an alchemist? How could this be? Liao Laosan thought and immediately waited for Luo Qingtong to make a fool of herself. After Luo Qingtong picked up the jade box, Hu Zhan behind her suddenly said, "You little brat, could it be that you're an alchemist apprentice?" He looked at Luo Qingtong with a hopeful expression. However, the latter wasn't prepared to reveal her identity. Hu's alchemist apprentice was as poor as her, and even dressed as a beggar. It was too much to say that it was fun. What's more, in this place, alchemists and alchemists represented great fame and attention. Luo Qingtong couldn't wait to keep a low profile. There were too many suspicious points about her. If she was exposed to the sunlight and everyone's eyes, it would be strange if she didn't have a layer of skin peeled off. Not to mention that those men in black might not have given up on looking for her. Luo Qingtong thought of this, and suddenly thought of something and said, "No, but I was born very sensitive to medicinal herbs. I don't know why, but when I see them, I can vaguely sense their differences and distinguish them." Luo Qingtong said. Then she pretended to be careful as she looked at Hu Zhan and the others and said, "You can rest assured. Since you helped me, I will also help you." Hu Zhan's lips twitched when he heard Luo Qingtong's words. Could it be that this brat rushed up because they had just helped him? Then it's over. Hu Zhan thought that Luo Qingtong was at least a pharmacist apprentice. He didn't expect that she was nothing. As for what she said, about being able to distinguish the differences of various medicinal herbs by feeling. He didn't believe it at all, okay? How could there be such a magical ability? Chapter 2402. Hu Zhan's heart was completely cold. However, Luo Qingtong rushed out because of them. She wanted to stand up for them, so he couldn't blame Luo Qingtong. He just responded with "n" and "us," but the expression on his face suddenly turned bitter. It's over, it's over. They're definitely going to suffer a loss this time. They're going to let Black Iron's people be proud again. As he thought about it, Hu Zhan immediately pulled at his messy hair. Guifeng, who was beside him, glanced at Luo Qingtong and said in a deep voice, "It's okay. Just try your best. It doesn't matter if you can't tell." Anyway, Black Iron's people had already made up their minds to cheat them. It was good that Luo Qingtong had the heart to help them. It wasn't her fault that she couldn't help them. Guifeng's words were already equivalent to comfort. Obviously, he and Hu Zhan also felt that Luo Qingtong just ran out impulsively. He was afraid that she couldn't help them. After hearing his words, Liao Laosan, who heard Luo Qingtong's words, also laughed loudly. "Oh my God! Did you all hear that? This little beggar said that she was born with a kind of distinguishing ability and can distinguish the difference between medicinal materials. Isn't this boasting too much? I say, people of the Red Flame mercenary group, this little beggar can't be a prop that you casually pulled from the streets, right? But if you want to find a prop to deal with our Black Iron's people, you have to find someone with a little brain. This stupidity makes me want to laugh until I can't stop." Liao Laosan laughed wildly. And the people of the Black Iron mercenary group behind him also did the same. Everyone roared with laughter. And the people of the Red Flame mercenary group had an ugly expression for a while. The people of the mercenary group behind them who supported them in the hall also looked at each other for a while. They didn't expect that this little beggar wasn't an apprentice alchemist. Then today's matter was considered a failure. At this time, Luo Qingtong's cold and indifferent voice sounded in the hall. There was a hint of coarseness in her voice that was deliberately suppressed, but it didn't sound low or unpleasant. On the contrary, it seemed even clearer because of this. Mixed in with the mocking laughter of the Black Iron mercenary group, it was extremely loud and pleasing to the ear. The purple blood realgar grass and the purple jade grass are very similar in appearance. Those who aren't proficient in medicinal knowledge won't be able to tell them apart. But since it's different, there must be something different. I've seen your mission description. Purple-blooded realgar grass likes to grow in dark and damp places, and snake-attracting grass grows beside it. During the spawning season, groups of snakes are often attracted to the snake-attracting grass to mate. But the purple jade grass is different. It likes to grow in places that face the sun. It became famous because it bathed in the sunlight and looked like warm jade. Look at the medicinal herb in my hand. Under its purple leaves, there are many fine dark veins. They are not evenly distributed. There are also traces of snake-like scales. Obviously, this medicinal herb grows in places that don't see sunlight. And, there are often many groups of snakes surrounding it. Because of this relationship, the veins on its leaves will have faint traces of snake scales because of the accumulation of years of crushing. Chapter 2403. He carefully examined the veins on the leaves of the herb and indeed, he saw the snake scale marks that Luo Qingtong had mentioned. The mark was very faint, almost non-existent. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's words, Hu Zhan would have gathered his strength in his eyes and tried his best to look at it. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to see the existence of this mark. Because this mark was crushed on it over the years, it wasn't the purple-blooded realgar grass's mark. Naturally, it wasn't particularly clear. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong, perhaps no one would know the mystery of this leaf. Snake scale mark. There really is. There really are snake scale marks. When Hu Zhan saw this, he was indescribably ecstatic. What Luo Qingtong said was actually true. This kid is amazing. He could actually find such an inconspicuous place. Hu Zhan laughed heartily. On the other side, Liao Laosan and the others were dumbfounded. What? He looked at the purple-blooded realgar grass in Hu Zhan's hand in disbelief. He didn't expect that Luo Qingtong could identify it so easily. And the reasons listed, he couldn't refute. After all, the location, living environment, and shape of the purple-blooded realgar grass were all described in the mission of his patron. What Luo Qingtong said was completely consistent with the purple-blooded realgar grass's habits. He couldn't say that the mission description issued by his patron was wrong, could he? That was really forcing people to be played like a monkey, it would arouse public anger. Liao Laosan thought so and instantly withered. He didn't expect that he would meet such a weirdo like Luo Qingtong. She was just a little beggar, but she actually had such a magical ability to distinguish the differences between medicinal herbs? Before, Liao Laosan took Luo Qingtong's words as a joke. But now, it seemed that he was the joke. And it was the biggest kind. Thinking of his wanton ridicule of Luo Qingtong in front of everyone just now, Liao Laosan's face turned green, red, and white. Colorful like a color palette, don't mention how wonderful it was. What made him want to cry even more was the way the Red Flame mercenary group members looked at him. Wicked old dog. Hu Zhan grinned and picked him up. Shout again. Weren't you screaming happily just now? You said we wronged you. He said that the medicinal ingredient was the purple jade grass. King dare to say it again in front of me? Hu Zhan clenched his fists so hard that creaking sounds could be heard. The group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group behind him also surrounded Liao Laosan and the others. Liao Laosan's legs trembled. When he saw the group of people surrounding him, his eyes rolled back and he almost fainted. How would he dare to say it again? Luo Qingtong had clearly explained the characteristics of the purple-blooded realgar grass. If he continued to deny it, he would be courting death. Even if the Red Flame mercenary group annihilated them, no one would dare to say anything. When Liao Laosan thought of this, he was even more terrified. He quickly knelt down and kowtowed to Hu Zhan. Especially towards Luo Qingtong, he slapped himself again and again. He scolded himself that he wasn't human, that he was as stupid as a pig or a dog, and that he had eyes but couldn't recognize Mount Tai. While he was crying and beating himself, the people in the hall on the other side also came back to their senses. This little beggar actually had such an ability? Chapter 2404. What did this ability represent? It represented that Luo Qingtong didn't need to be a pharmacist to be able to easily distinguish the difference between a group of medicinal herbs. Why did the group of mercenaries not dare to speak up when they clearly knew that the Black Iron mercenary group was exploiting them? Although the Black Iron mercenary group was the banker of Mercenary City this year, the most important thing was that they couldn't win against the Black Iron mercenary group. They clearly knew that there wasn't any problem with the medicinal herbs they picked. After all, they had risked their lives to pick them. How could they not know whether it was high-quality medicinal herbs or low-quality medicinal herbs? But they knew clearly that it didn't mean that the Mercenary Association would admit to it. The Black Iron mercenary group didn't admit to it, and the group of mercenaries didn't understand pharmacology. Naturally, they could only let them distort the truth. But Luo Qingtong's ability was different. The young girl obviously wasn't a pharmacist, and didn't have any refining methods to distinguish medicinal herbs. But she relied on the growth habits and minute details of the medicinal herbs to identify the medicinal herbs. Not only that, the Black Iron mercenary group was also speechless and couldn't refute. How could the group of mercenaries not go crazy and not have burning gazes? One had to know that Luo Qingtong's ability and method of identification were things that they could learn and apply. As long as Luo Qingtong could tell them the identification methods and minute differences of those medicinal herbs, they wouldn't have to worry about being cheated by the Black Iron mercenary group in the future. And they wouldn't have to worry about finding the wrong medicinal herbs when they went up the mountain to pick medicinal herbs and risked their lives. This little beggar was really something. The group of mercenaries thought so and looked at Luo Qingtong with even more burning gazes. And Luo Qingtong, seeing their gazes, immediately pretended to be scared and shrunk her body, moving closer to the Red Flame mercenary group. Not far behind her was Guifeng. The latter was holding the purple-blooded realgar grass and carefully examining it. When he saw the faintly discernible snake scale traces on it, unless he used all his strength to look at it, it was absolutely impossible to see clearly. His eyes deepened. At this moment, Luo Qingtong leaned towards him. When his hand touched Luo Qingtong's body, he came back to his senses. Then, he glared at the mercenaries who were rushing towards Luo Qingtong and asked coldly, "What are you trying to do?" "She is a member of our Red Flame mercenary group. He raised his hand and shielded Luo Qingtong behind him. The young man's ability was extraordinary, and at this time, it was the most coveted. Guifeng didn't know why the other party had fallen to the level of a child beggar despite having such abilities. However, when he thought of the other party's thin and petite figure, he guessed that her family background wasn't very good in the past. What's more, her abilities were so outstanding. If she didn't have the ability to protect herself, she would be in big trouble. Thinking of this, he somewhat understood the reason. It wasn't that the young man didn't want to reveal his abilities, but he didn't dare and couldn't reveal his abilities. Thinking about it this way, the other party must have mustered up a lot of courage to stand up for them. Thinking of this, Guifeng suddenly felt a trace of pity in his heart. He pulled the person behind him. Chapter 2405. The group of mercenaries were staring at Luo Qingtong like hungry wolves, ready to snatch her away. However, Guifeng's action made them all sober up. They remembered that Luo Qingtong pointed out the difference of the purple blood realgar grass because of the red flame mercenary group. The group of mercenaries couldn't figure out whether they had any relationship before. But they were unwilling to give up on Luo Qingtong just like that. After all, for so many years, they had only seen Luo Qingtong who was not an alchemist but could perfectly identify medicinal herbs. And her method was very suitable for the group of mercenaries. How could they give up? At that moment, a person who looked like a high-ranking mercenary group stood up and said, "Guifeng, it's not right for your red flame mercenary group to do this, right?" He looked at Luo Qingtong as he spoke, his gaze burning. "This little beggar's ability is so powerful, your red flame mercenary group actually wants to monopolize her? We won't agree." "That's right." With him taking the lead, the group of mercenaries immediately gathered their courage and shouted at Guifeng and the others, "Leader Gu, we respect your strength, but this little beggar isn't your red flame mercenary group's member. Isn't it too much for you to do this?" "That's right. How can you do things like this? Seeing that this little beggar's ability is so powerful, you want to monopolize her. To think that I used to think that the red flame mercenary group's strength was not bad, and that they were a rare clean stream in Mercenary City. I didn't expect them to be the same as the Black Iron mercenary group. They are all shameless people." In order to get Luo Qingtong, the group of mercenaries did not hesitate to slander Guifeng and the others. They said that they were as shameless as the Black Iron mercenary group and wanted to monopolize Luo Qingtong. However, who here couldn't see it? Luo Qingtong helped the Red Flame mercenary group, and Guifeng wanted to protect this little beggar. But it was obvious that the group of mercenaries didn't want to. And it was obvious that they wanted to join forces to deal with the Red Flame mercenary group. If they really joined forces, under the instigation of someone with ulterior motives, even if the Red Flame mercenary group's strength was tyrannical, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage under the attacks of a group of mercenaries. As the members of the Red Flame mercenary group thought about it, their expressions changed slightly as they all looked at Guifeng. As for Hu Zhan and the others, they were originally dealing with Liao Laosan and the others, beating them until they wailed again and again. Hearing Guifeng and the others' movements, their expressions instantly changed, and they were too lazy to bother with Laosan and the others. Instead, it was the latter and the others who were kneeling on the ground, crying out in pain. Their faces were filled with the joy of escaping death. When Tiger War rushed back to Guifeng's side, he mockingly shouted at the group of excited mercenaries, "Yo, your words sound better than singing, huh? 2. They just want to snatch this brat and make him work like an ox or a horse. This little brat is our benefactor, we can't treat him unfairly." Hu Zhan said and slapped Luo Qingtong's shoulder heavily. The latter's lips twitched. Chapter 2406. If it wasn't for Luo Qingtong's ingenuity to neutralize his strength, she would have been slapped to the ground. Was this person trying to protect her, or was he trying to kill her? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. But she also knew that Hu Zhan didn't do it on purpose. He was just a little reckless and didn't know the severity of the situation. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she thought of Chu Lingfeng, that blockhead. In a certain aspect, the other party was somewhat similar to Hu Zhan. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's gaze softened a little. At the same time, she looked at Gui Feng in front of her quietly, wanting to know what choice he would make. And this would also determine Luo Qingtong's attitude towards them later. That's right, Luo Qingtong knew from the start that she would inevitably face such a scene when she revealed her ability. She wanted to see what choice Gui Feng and the rest would make. If they chose to draw a clear line with her, she naturally had a way to escape. But at this point, she wouldn't have any interaction with the Red Flame mercenary group anymore. She took action just now as returning the favor to Gui Feng for speaking up for her. But if they insisted on protecting her, then she could believe in them and cooperate with them. Luo Qingtong had always done things like this. She wouldn't be particularly kind, but she wouldn't pour her heart out for a moment of kindness from others. If they wanted her to help willingly and give the other party benefits, other than exchanging her life for it, there was only the word, true feelings left. And in this world, how few people could truly treat others with true feelings. On the contrary, some ungrateful wolves were the most popular. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's lips instantly revealed a faintly discernible mocking smile. She would rather throw her things out to feed the dogs than give them to some ungrateful wolves. When Hu Zhan's voice sounded, Gui Feng's gaze swept coldly across the crowd of excited people who were waiting to rush forward. He waved the long spear in his hand and said coldly, "Protect her, go." Once Gui Feng said that, it was obvious that he was going to go against this group of mercenaries for Luo Qingtong's sake. The group of Red Flame mercenary group didn't say anything and only took out their weapons one by one. And Hu Zhan even laughed and clenched his fists. Clatter. A crisp and clear sound came from his knuckles. He laughed and said, "Boss is still the most straightforward. Let's go." As he spoke, he was about to lead the crowd and rush out behind Gui Feng. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the people in the hall changed. Gui Feng. Are you really going to go against so many people in Mercenary City for a little beggar? Don't forget that you still want to stay in Mercenary City. The member of the high-ranking mercenary group who spoke first said. His face was full of anger. He didn't expect Gui Feng and the rest to be willing to go against so many of them just to protect a little beggar. Wasn't it just a little beggar who helped them? It was only right to hand her over and share her with them. Gui Feng and the rest were actually so stubborn. No wonder they couldn't develop in Mercenary City despite their tyrannical strength. Chapter 2407. This kind of person was simply an anomaly among mercenaries who only cared about profits. They didn't know how the other party cultivated to such an extent. With such an inflexible character, he actually didn't die early. That senior mercenary's face was filled with anger. But Gui Feng didn't even look at them. He only swept the long spear in his hand coldly and was about to break through with Hu Zhan and the rest. Just at this moment, Luo Qingtong's timid voice came from behind him. Everyone. No, everyone, don't make a ruckus. Luo Qingtong's body revealed half of her body from behind Gui Feng's back. Her gaze was timid and fearful as she looked at the group of people surrounding her and the Red Flame mercenary group. She said softly, "Even if I'm a member of the Red Flame mercenary group, I can also help you appraise the medicinal herbs. But I want to collect the appraisal fee." As she said, she shrank back behind Gui Feng's back. "So, don't make a ruckus. Or else I won't show it to anyone." The moment Luo Qingtong's words came out, all the mercenaries present were stunned. That's right, why didn't they think that even if Luo Qingtong was a member of the Red Flame mercenary group, she could still help them appraise medicinal herbs? After all, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group weren't like the other large mercenary groups who monopolized all the benefits. The people of the Red Flame mercenary group could be considered as the only upright mercenary group in Mercenary City who didn't casually bully and coerce the low-level mercenaries like them. And the other mercenary groups weren't as easy to talk to as them. Thinking about it, their previous attempt to stop Luo Qingtong and the Red Flame mercenary group was simply stupid to the extreme. Without the protection of the Red Flame mercenary group, wouldn't Luo Qingtong's ability be monopolized by those large mercenary groups? At that time, none of them would be able to get the benefits brought about by the youngster's ability. It was better to be like now. Luo Qingtong had joined the Red Flame mercenary group, and under the other party's protection, those large mercenary groups wouldn't dare to act rashly. And for people like them, if they wanted to get the other party to appraise, they just had to pay some money directly. How good it was for everyone to take what they needed. Everyone thought in their hearts and immediately felt ashamed. They must have been kicked in the head by a donkey to want to attack the Red Flame mercenary group. As for the person who spoke just now, he was the one who tried to sow discord, causing them to misunderstand the Red Flame mercenary group and forgetting the Red Flame mercenary group's code of conduct. The crowd glared angrily at the member of the advanced mercenary group who spoke first. The expression of the high-ranking mercenary group's member changed as he looked at them. He was indeed planning to sow discord. He wanted to use the people present to force the Red Flame mercenary group to the opposite side of the crowd. Only then would the group of high-ranking mercenaries make a move to snatch the person from Guifeng's hands. His expression changed. Facing the angry gazes of the crowd, he felt very guilty. I'm leaving first." As he spoke, he turned around and prepared to leave. However, the group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group were tricked by him and were almost forced out of Mercenary City. How could they be willing to let it go? Hu Zhan, in particular, threw a punch straight at Yi Futian's face. "I'll leave your grandpa. Didn't you want to fight with our Red Flame mercenary group? You were shouting so happily just now and now you're withering? Master Hu is telling you, it's over. Damn it, beat him up." Chapter 2408. As soon as Hu Zhan spoke, a group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group rushed towards the person from the senior mercenary group. Behind them, there was a group of angry low-level mercenaries who had been fooled by them. The crowd rushed towards the person from the senior mercenary group and beat him up in an instant. The latter was drowned in the crowd. He didn't even have time to make a sound before he was brutally beaten up. He was beaten black and blue, and he fainted. When the crowd dispersed, he was lying on the ground foaming at the mouth. Liao Laosan and the others looked and their legs suddenly went soft. When they saw Luo Qingtong and the people from the Red Flame mercenary group being surrounded, they were very happy. They thought that Luo Qingtong and the people from the Red Flame mercenary group were in big trouble. As a result, the situation took a sharp turn. They didn't have time to cheer in their hearts when they saw Luo Qingtong solve the trouble of the Red Flame mercenary group with a few words. Not only that, she also turned the trouble into an opportunity. Damn it! This was simply a fantasy. They looked at Luo Qingtong, who was surrounded by a group of mercenaries who were asking about her well-being and trying to curry favor with her. Their minds couldn't move at all. They didn't expect that things would turn out like this in the end. This little beggar, the little beggar that they had casually scolded and looked down upon, actually had such ability. In the blink of an eye, he had become the guest of honor of all the mercenaries in Mercenary City, the target that they all wanted to curry favor with. And they, the people from the Black Iron mercenary group who boasted of being superior, became the people that everyone wanted to beat up. They couldn't bear this blow. Who could tell them what was going on? What made Liao Laosan and the others unable to bear was that Luo Qingtong stayed in the Mercenary City and promised to identify medicinal herbs for these mercenaries. What about the people from the Black Iron mercenary group? In the future, how could they embezzle the medicinal herbs of these mercenaries? How could they cancel their missions and buy their medicinal herbs at a low price? The people from the Black Iron mercenary group thought and instantly rolled their eyes. They didn't faint after being beaten by Hu Zhan and the others, but now they had an impulse to die at any moment. Especially Liao Laosan, his intestines were about to turn green with regret. If he had known earlier that Luo Qingtong had such an ability, he would never have embezzled the Red Flame mercenary group's business. No matter how much money he was offered, he wouldn't do it. What kind of bad luck did he have in his life? To think that he would meet such a god of plague, destroying his business and seizing his lifeline. Not only had he messed up this business deal, but he had also provoked Luo Qingtong, the god of plague. Not only that, but he also helped the Red Flame mercenary group to find such an influential signboard and expand their influence. Liao Laosan felt like beating himself to death. If he didn't look down on Luo Qingtong, Guifeng wouldn't have spoken up for him. If he didn't speak up for the other party, then Luo Qingtong wouldn't stand up for the Red Flame mercenary group. Damn it, what kind of mistake did he make? Liao Laosan almost cried. His heart was filled with regret. If he had known that the consequences of his words would be so serious, he would never have opened his mouth. He would have even respectfully sent Luo Qingtong away. It didn't matter if he helped her gather information for free. As long as he could send this god of plague away. Liao Laosan couldn't catch his breath and almost suffocated himself to death. Chapter 2409. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong and the Red Flame mercenary group had to use a Herculean effort to escape from the group of enthusiastic low-level mercenaries that surrounded them. Especially Tiger Zhan, a dignified 8-foot man, almost had his shoe squeezed off. Because those people who came to please Luo Qingtong were not here to fight, he naturally couldn't do anything and almost exploded himself. But soon, he laughed again, raised his hand and patted Luo Qingtong's shoulder. Good. You're good, kid. Huh. Did you see that? Liao Laosan and his group of bitter melon faces. And those people of the Iron Blood mercenary group with colorful soy sauce faces? Damn, that one is so black, and it even has color effects. It's so ugly that I'm going to laugh to death. This little guy is with us, they can't get a share. Their hearts must be so sullen that they're stupid. Ha ha ha, good. Tiger Zhan thought like this, and suddenly he was not so sullen that he almost had his shoe squeezed off. An enchanting female mercenary beside them rolled her eyes at him, then raised her hand and hugged Luo Qingtong, pressing her to her chest. Okay, Tiger Zhan, you don't know how strong your hand is. Do you want to slap this little guy to death? Then she smiled and squatted slightly to Luo Qingtong. Little guy, tell sister your name. From now on, sister will protect you. If this damn tiger dares to bully you in the future, you can come to me. She said, her two breasts that were at least 36D swayed in front of her, making Luo Qingtong stare. She looked up at the two breasts of the enchanting female mercenary, and then looked at her own breasts that were flattened but used to be. The corner of her mouth twitched for a while. Fortunately, she was not a girl, otherwise, such a comparison would be really painful. Born in 2 lives, the only pain in Luo Qingtong's heart was her cup size that didn't grow, really heartbroken. Just as Luo Qingtong was silently praying, Hu Zhan's dissatisfied voice sounded. Oh Yang Yu, what are you talking about? When did I bully her? Tiger War rolled his eyes. However, he also noticed that Luo Qingtong had intentionally avoided his slap when Ouyang Yingyu pulled her. Did he really use too much strength? Hu Zhan felt a little embarrassed. After scratching his head silently, he didn't forcefully pull Luo Qingtong over. He just said this with dissatisfaction. Humph, you know very well whether or not it is. Ouyang Yingyu snorted, and her pair of enchanting eyes instantly swept towards Hu Zhan, both beautiful and imposing. It could be seen that although her appearance was enchanting and beautiful, and her words were also very flowery, she was not a person to be trifled with. It was just that this name was a little too virtuous. Luo Qingtong was a little dumbfounded as she watched them go back and forth. She had an inexplicable feeling that the people of the Red Flame mercenary group were all different from the people she had met before. She couldn't tell what was different. But it felt like the relationship she had with Su Yu and Su Xiaoxiao. Sincere and sincere. Although they were superior and subordinate, they were like partners. Sure enough, when Hu Zhan and Ouyang Yingyu insulted each other, the other members of the Red Flame mercenary group all laughed, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. Chapter 24:10. Well, little guy, tell us your name. Don't worry. Since our leader has taken you in, no matter what, you are a member of our Red Flame mercenary group. As if seeing Luo Qingtong's gaze, Ouyang Yingyu chuckled and raised her hand to scratch Luo Qingtong's nose. Her appearance was gorgeous and enchanting. She was really a seductive stunner. Unfortunately, this was a thorny flower. However, she didn't know that the person in front of her, who she called little guy, was more evil, more enchanting, and more arrogant than her. But now the flower had restrained her claws and teeth and was trying to play the role of a little white rabbit. Luo Qingtong smiled innocently and called out to Ouyang Yingyu shyly, "Sister Yingyu, my name is Luo Xiaoqi." Luo Qingtong had dismantled her previous name and used it for herself. Anyway, except for a few people, no one would know that she was called Luo Qi. And the name Xia Qi definitely couldn't be used. At least, it couldn't be used now. Luo Qingtong wouldn't give those men in black a chance to find her. Well, Luo Xiaoqi, this name is really cute. Ouyang Yingyu said and directly pressed Luo Qingtong into her arms. She didn't know why, but she liked the petite and thin little guy in front of her very much. Of course, it was also possible that she had just helped the people of the Red Flame mercenary group. The people of the Red Flame mercenary group were particular about revenge and gratitude. Although Luo Qingtong obviously helped them because Guifeng said a few good words for her before. But how could those words be compared with Luo Qingtong helping them solve the difficulties from the Black Iron mercenary group? Because of the completion of the mission just now, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group didn't know how much rewards and benefits they could get. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong's ability was extraordinary. Her observation was extremely powerful and terrifying. She could easily distinguish the difference between those medicinal materials. In the future, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group would be blessed. In such a case, how could Ouyang Yingyu not be more and more fond of Luo Qingtong? Most of the others had the same thought. As for Luo Qingtong's cultivation, they didn't care about it at all. To the members of the Red Flame mercenary group, companions were companions. It had nothing to do with the others' cultivation. Even if Luo Qingtong's cultivation was as weak as the sky, as long as Guifeng acknowledged her, everyone acknowledged her, it would not be a problem. In fact, because Luo Qingtong's cultivation was not obvious, they would even love and protect Luo Qingtong more. Alright, little cutie little 7, from now on, you're a member of our Red Flame mercenary group. Come, let me introduce you. This is our group leader, Guifeng. He's at the 6th level of the human martial realm. Ouyang Yingyu giggled and said, "Don't think that our captain is not strong. His dragon-slaying spear has killed countless 6th-level human martial realm experts. Although he's at the 6th level of the human martial realm, he's not inferior to a 7th or 8th level expert. Even 9th level experts who don't have a solid foundation may not be able to do anything to him." Ouyang Yingyu said and turned to Hu Zhan, who was rubbing his hands and waiting for her to introduce him. She rolled her eyes and said, "As for this, he's our Red Flame mercenary group's vice leader. Hu Zhan." Chapter 24:11. So, if you have any problems in the future, if someone bullies you, you can go to him. Of course, if you are bullied by him, you can come to me. See if I don't torture him to death. Ouyang Yingyu raised her eyebrows and chuckled. The expression between her eyebrows was very domineering and beautiful. When Hu Zhan heard her words, he suddenly looked resentful and said, "You want to teach me a lesson?" Aren't you just relying on the fact that I don't hit women? Hu Zhan was at the 5th level of the human martial realm, while Ouyang Yingyu was at the 4th level. However, because he didn't hit women, he was completely dominated by Yingyu. Is that so? Ouyang Yingyu raised her eyebrows and looked at Hu Zhan. Then come to my room tonight and let's compare notes. She said it in an unusually flirtatious manner, and in the end, she even raised her hand to stroke her hair. When Hu Zhan heard her words, he instantly looked as if he had seen a ghost. His face twitched slightly and his face twisted. Okay, my great aunt, I'll let you win, okay? Don't drag me into a fight at night, I really can't take it. I still have a mission tomorrow. Leader, don't you think so? As he spoke, he quickly pulled Guifeng over. When the surrounding members of the Red Flame mercenary group heard his words and saw his cowardly performance, they instantly roared with laughter. Hey, big brother Zhan, didn't you say that Sister Yu is relying on the fact that she is a woman and you don't hit her, so she can suppress you? Go, we support you to fight with her. Yes, otherwise, the position of the deputy leader in the group is a bit unworthy of the name. That's right. The group of people laughed with good intentions. Hu Zhan, on the other hand, glared at them angrily. This group of bastards, no sense of brotherhood. If they wanted to see the world in chaos, why didn't they fight with that woman, Ouyang Yingyu? Who didn't know that this woman, Ouyang Yingyu, became extremely terrifying at night? When she went crazy, even the leader might not be able to deal with her. If he fought with her, wouldn't he be looking for a beating? Get out of here. Otherwise, I'll let you guys guard her tonight. It's a good opportunity to train you guys. When the group of people heard this, they immediately scattered like birds. Humph, a bunch of men with evil intentions but no guts. Ouyang Yingyu snorted and flipped her hair. Then she looked at Luo Qingtong and said, Okay, little cutie, do you remember what I just said? Yes. Luo Qingtong was pressed against her chest. She didn't come back to her senses for a long time. She was embarrassed. At this time, Guifeng raised his hand and pulled her over. He said to Ouyang Yingyu, all right, he's still young. Don't tease him. Also, send someone to pay attention to the Black Iron mercenary group. After suffering such a huge loss, they might not be willing to let it go. His voice was faint and his expression was calm. However, when his hand came into contact with Luo Qingtong's skin, he suddenly paused. Not because of anything else, but because the skin of the young man in front of him was too smooth and soft. It looked as if it had never been ravaged by wind and rain. Guifeng looked at Luo Qingtong's obviously very petite face and frowned slightly. This little guy, maybe he used to be a spoiled young master. This could also explain why she was so unguarded before. Chapter 24:12. This little fellow was a bit scheming. She knew how to hide her abilities, but she wasn't experienced enough. Instead, she was pure and innocent to the point of being cute. If she hadn't met them, if she had met any other mercenary group blinded by greed, she would have already become someone else's slave and money tree. Thinking of this, Guifeng looked at Luo Qingtong with a gentler gaze. He softened his voice and said to Luo Qingtong, Luo. Little Seven, you can stay in the Red Flame mercenary group with peace of mind. As long as the people of the Red Flame mercenary group are here, we will not let you encounter any harm in Mercenary City. You can rest assured. Guifeng's voice was a bit stiff. Obviously, he wasn't used to the current situation where he spoke slowly. Usually, the mercenary groups were all big and rough men. Even Ouyang Yingyu was more intrepid than the average mercenary. Guifeng had never met such a petite and weak youth like Luo Qingtong. However, he was afraid that the other party would be frightened, so he suppressed his temper and spoke to her in a rare gentle manner. Luo Qingtong glanced at Guifeng. This person's complexion was calm and his eyes were upright. She hadn't misjudged him before. Since that was the case, she would borrow the people of the Red Flame mercenary group to do things in Mercenary City. Then, in the future, she would also give them great wealth. For Luo Qingtong, she had countless ways to earn enough money to investigate the location of the true Spill continent. But none of those methods were unnoticeable. In this strange place, Luo Qingtong was very likely to have those black-clothed people tracking her. Luo Qingtong didn't want to attract unnecessary trouble. She might even accidentally lead those enemies to the true Spill continent. Therefore, she could only choose a more cautious method. And the people of the Red Flame mercenary group were the people she chose. With the other party's protection, Luo Qingtong could use her blood-red eyes to make money in Mercenary City. And because this method was invisible and traceless, it didn't reveal her identity as an alchemist or even an alchemist. It could be said that this was the most stable and fastest way for Luo Qingtong to earn money. As for the people of the Red Flame mercenary group, as long as they didn't have any ill intentions towards her until she was ready to leave, she would give them a corresponding reward as compensation. Luo Qingtong's mind was filled with countless immortal secret manuals and cultivation methods. In the past, when she was on Earth, or even when she was in the true Spill continent, she was unable to cultivate because she lacked immortal spirit energy. However, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group were already at the Venerable realm and above, while Guifeng and the others were at the human martial realm and above. Under such circumstances, the immortal secret scriptures and cultivation methods that she remembered could be used by them. Of course, she would keep the best Luo Qingtong for herself. Only the rest would be given to others. As for the hidden dangers and weaknesses that Guifeng and the others had developed due to their years of self-exploration and cultivation, Luo Qingtong would point them out one by one. This would be their reward for sheltering her. As someone who sincerely helped her, Luo Qingtong was never stingy with her rewards. Luo Qingtong's cleverness made Guifeng very satisfied. He raised his hand and rubbed Luo Qingtong's head, then said to her, "Okay, you can go and rest first." Chapter 24:13. Guifeng originally wanted to let other people make arrangements for Luo Qingtong. But when he thought about how Hu Zhan and the others were a group of uncouth people who didn't know the severity of the situation, and the only person he could rely on, Yang Yingyu, was a person who liked to tease people. Coupled with the hidden danger in her body, Guifeng thought about it and realized that he was the only one who could take care of Luo Qingtong. His face twitched slightly, and he couldn't help but bite the bullet and take over the responsibility of taking care of Luo Qingtong. He brought Luo Qingtong to a place not far from his side courtyard. Firstly, it was convenient to take care of Luo Qingtong, and secondly, it was to protect Luo Qingtong's safety. The youngster's ability to identify medicinal herbs was not ordinary. The entire mercenary city was staring at them at this moment. Who didn't want Luo Qingtong, this fragrant steamed bun? This way, even if they weren't alchemists or alchemists, they could still easily identify any medicinal herbs. This ability was an excellent blessing for people like them who lived on the edge of a knife and didn't have enough time and resources to learn and practice alchemy and alchemy. Even some alchemists and alchemists might be scrambling for Luo Qingtong's ability. After all, Luo Qingtong's ability was suitable for all ages and didn't require any prerequisites. Some alchemists' ability wasn't strong enough and couldn't identify high-level medicinal herbs. They might even need Luo Qingtong's help. Controlling Luo Qingtong was equivalent to holding an excellent lifeline and a way to make a fortune. How could those mercenary groups give up so easily? Therefore, Guifeng had to be more careful. He couldn't let anything happen to this little guy in his hands. After all, if it wasn't for them, Luo Qingtong's ability wouldn't have been exposed. Guifeng thought so and immediately went to make arrangements for Luo Qingtong after arranging things for her. After Luo Qingtong was arranged to stay in the side courtyard by Guifeng, she immediately breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed. She gave herself a simple wash and deepened the birthmark on her face. She tried her best to let the birthmark cover her entire face, making it look hideous and ugly, but at the same time, her face couldn't be seen clearly. After that, she took another bath and quickly changed into a clean set of coarse clothes. Guifeng had asked someone to prepare this for her. After all, the clothes that Luo Qingtong wore before were too shabby and tattered. After doing this, Luo Qingtong reclined on the chair with one hand on the table. She supported her chin with one hand and seriously considered what she should do next. She definitely had to investigate information about the true Spill continent. However, she had offended the people of the Black Iron mercenary group. Even if she made enough money, she still had to find a way to get the best of both worlds. Only then would she be able to investigate the true Spill continent. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong was really worried that the Black Iron mercenary group would give her false information. More importantly, she feared that these people would go to the true Spill continent to investigate her, or even attack the people of the true Spill continent. After all, to the people of a 6-star region, a 9-star region wasn't even worth mentioning. Not to mention that the true Spill continent was only a low-level continent in the 9-star region. Luo Qingtong feared that if the Black Iron mercenary group leaked out even a little bit of information, it would be enough to destroy the true Spill continent. Therefore, she had to be cautious. Luo Qingtong's brows furrowed slightly, but soon, her brows relaxed. She had already thought of what to do. Chapter 24:14. It's here? Under the cloak, a half-covered, faintly discernible face lifted slightly and looked at Mercenary City in front of him. The person's face was completely hidden under the black cloak. Even his figure was completely shrouded in it. He walked confidently towards Mercenary City in front of him. His footsteps were very elegant and leisurely. I didn't expect her to be hiding here. The man's voice was clear and melodious, like a mountain spring falling into a stream, making the sound of collision and sparkling water. However, the nonchalance and coldness hidden within those words caused one to feel a chill run down one's spine. Yu Mingqian chuckled as she looked at the city gate of Mercenary City in front of her. That pair of glass-like eyes were so clear that no emotions could be seen, let alone a trace of a smile. Interesting. After Luo Qingtong broke the inscription man-seeking array, he still relied on the powerful intelligence network of the Inscription Association to find the place where Luo Qingtong was. Yu Mingqian had people pay attention to the surroundings to make sure that there was no thin and weak youth like Luo Qingtong out of the city, which meant that the other party was still in Mercenary City. However, the other party had many tricks up her sleeve and had a cunning personality. She could have disguised herself and left. But since she appeared here, it meant that she had something to investigate. And before she found out what she wanted to do, she probably wouldn't leave. Therefore, Yu Mingqian could be sure that the other party was still in Mercenary City. Then let him meet with the other party for a while. At the same time, they could play a game of cat and mouse. Yu Mingqian's beautiful smile instantly curved as she thought of this. Her figure leaped and disappeared at the entrance of Mercenary City. At this moment, in Mercenary City, Luo Qingtong had already started her appraisal business in Mercenary City under the protection of the Red Flame mercenary group. She had the ability of the blood pupil, so she could easily see through the details and peculiarities of those medicinal herbs that no one else knew about. Every time she compared it with the descriptions of those mission issuers, she could immediately compare the medicinal herbs obtained by the group of mercenaries and whether they were mission items or not. And the evidence and reasons she listed made the investors and the people of the Black Iron mercenary group unable to refute her. The mercenaries gained a lot of benefits from her appraisal. Furthermore, after a shopkeeper who opened a pharmacy in Mercenary City asked Luo Qingtong to help identify a certain rare medicinal ingredient in his pharmacy, everyone in Mercenary City flocked to Luo Qingtong like a flock of ducks. This ugly young man was simply a god. Her eyes seemed to have magical powers. She could easily see through the strange details that they couldn't find even when they racked their brains. Even people from pawn shops, auctions, antique shops, and weapon shops came to Luo Qingtong for advice. After all, In these shops, even if there were people who could help them, there were also cases where they couldn't be sure. But Luo Qingtong was different. Every time the young man started from the smallest detail, every time he appraised a rare tool, he never failed. Moreover, Luo Qingtong didn't hide anything. Every time she appraised an item, she would explain it on the spot in the mercenary association. When the crowd of onlookers heard this, they all benefited. In this way, every time Luo Qingtong helped someone to appraise an item in the mercenary association, the entire mercenary association would be crowded with people coming and going. Chapter 24:15. A group of burly, valiant, or full of murderous intent mercenaries. At this moment, each and every one of them were like primary school students listening carefully. Holding their heads, holding a pen, squatting on the road, seriously listening to Luo Qingtong's explanation. Each and every one of them seriously wrote down Luo Qingtong's words in the notebook that they carried with them. Although the posture of holding a pen was more painful than holding a knife, and when they encountered words that they didn't know how to write, they didn't dare to miss any of the content that Luo Qingtong explained to them. In order to snatch a mercenary's notebook that they had already memorized, they fought among themselves and almost turned the square into a martial arts arena. But even if they were so noisy, as long as Luo Qingtong's words came out, they would immediately listen obediently, and all of them bowed their heads and admitted their mistakes. After all, the kindness that this youngster gave to them was indescribable. The group of people who originally wanted to snatch Luo Qingtong to their side were all dumbfounded when they saw this scene, and they all gave up on the idea. After all, the reason why they wanted to snatch Luo Qingtong before was to use her knowledge and ability for their own use. But this time, Luo Qingtong didn't hide anything, and they all benefited from Luo Qingtong's hands. How could they be thick-skinned enough to hurt the other party? What's more, even if they wanted to do so, the people under them wouldn't be willing. After all, those people could now get a variety of knowledge from Luo Qingtong's hands, so why would they support them to make a move on Luo Qingtong? Once Luo Qingtong's ability was monopolized by them, only the senior mercenary group's executives would be able to enjoy Luo Qingtong's ability and knowledge. As a result, unless the senior mercenaries were crazy, they wouldn't listen to them and make a move on Luo Qingtong. There was no other way. The senior mercenary group could only give up on the idea and treat Luo Qingtong as their ancestor. Otherwise, if the other party fell out with them and let the Red Flame mercenary group's people drive them out and not let them listen to her explanation, their group would definitely be divided. When the senior mercenary group gave up on the idea, the Black Iron mercenary group's people who originally wanted to find trouble with Luo Qingtong and the Red Flame mercenary group didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. They looked at Luo Qingtong, who was giving a lively explanation outside the square, and hatefully clenching their teeth, but they couldn't do anything to the youngster. At this moment, almost the entire mercenary group's people were on Luo Qingtong's side. Even their own Black Iron mercenary group had disguised themselves to listen to Luo Qingtong's explanation. What could they do? The youngster's explanation was extremely. She even explained some of the dangerous situations that they might encounter when hunting for the mission item. If everyone listened to her explanation more, there would be fewer casualties when they encountered similar missions in the future. Who would be willing to give up such an opportunity? If anyone dared to touch Luo Qingtong, they would be going against the entire mercenary group. If the Black Iron mercenary group's people didn't have anything better to do, they definitely wouldn't dare to touch Luo Qingtong. They even had to properly protect the other party. After all, if anything happened to the youngster, the Black Iron mercenary group's people would be the first to take the blame. The Black Iron mercenary group's people expressed their bitterness in their hearts. Who the hell would be as sullen as them? Luo Qingtong obviously cut off their lifeline and source of income, forcing them to almost go bankrupt, but they still had to protect her in the open and in the dark. Chapter 24:16. While the people from the Black Iron Mercenary Corps were feeling stifled, the people from the Red Flame Mercenary Corps were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped. When they received Luo Qingtong, they could already foresee that the future would not be peaceful. After all, Luo Qingtong's ability was so great that those people from the high-ranking mercenary corps and the Black Iron Mercenary Corps wouldn't let her go. However, who would have thought that Luo Qingtong's public explanation had already blocked all the things outside and didn't let the people from the Red Flame Mercenary Corps spend any more effort. The people from the Red Flame Mercenary Corps didn't seem to have done anything except for guarding Luo Qingtong at the beginning when she came to the mercenary club. After that, the job of guarding was snatched away by those mercenaries who were attracted by Luo Qingtong's explanation. Now that the youngster was surrounded by groups of mercenaries, they couldn't be of any use at all, okay? Looking at those high-ranking mercenary corps who were eyeing Luo Qingtong covetously and didn't know when they would make a move, they smiled and greeted them as if they were brothers and were on the same side. Hu Zhan and the others' lips twitched, and they didn't know what to say. They had made all the preparations for battle, but when they came to the mercenary club, they realized that they were just here for a tour. What would they protect Luo Qingtong? Damn, this little brat didn't need their protection at all, okay? Look at how she trained these vicious and murderous mercenaries like sheep. Just now, when those high-ranking mercenary corps higher-ups who usually looked at them coldly or angrily came over to greet them, Hu Zhan was so stunned that he almost didn't recognize them. The smiles on those people's faces were as miserable as the procuress in a brothel. Hu Zhan almost vomited out the food he ate last night, and he had goosebumps all over the ground. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't speak in front of so many people, Hu Zhan really wanted to ask them if they ate the wrong medicine to smile so lowly. They even called him Brother Hu. Damn, didn't they call him a brainless brute before? Hu Zhan expressed that he couldn't adapt. Ouyang Yingyu walked to Guifeng's side and said to him with bright eyes, "Boss, we really picked up a treasure this time," she said and looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong. Before this, Ouyang Yingyu never thought that the matter after they accepted Luo Qingtong would be solved so easily. Seeing that all the people from the Black Iron Mercenary Corps were forced to go back, no one dared to move. The other high-ranking mercenary corps also gathered around Luo Qingtong were carefully listening to her explanation. Ouyang Yingyu's beautiful eyes were amazingly bright. Luo Shaoqi. This little brat was really amazing. Guifeng's Luo Yingyu. His gaze landed on Luo Qingtong and found that the youth's figure standing in the middle of the square was shockingly dazzling. Protect her well. When Guifeng brought Luo Qingtong back to the mercenary group to protect her, he didn't think that today's matter would happen. He didn't think that the youth was so powerful. With just a moment of protection, the situation was turned around. Chapter 24:17. Instead, it turned into an opportunity that was beneficial to them. Just as Yingyu said, they had really picked up a treasure. They originally thought that the youth would only bring them trouble. They didn't expect that just like how the youth had helped them identify medicinal herbs in the Mercenary Association, he had turned a disadvantage into an advantage. They, who wanted to protect Luo Qingtong, had instead benefited from the youth. These things, the people of the Black Iron Mercenary Group and those high-ranking mercenary groups probably didn't think of it. Thinking of this, Guifeng suddenly chuckled. That face that had always been calm, cold, and unsmiling melted like an iceberg in an instant, showing 120% elegance and handsomeness. Cool and chivalrous, he was completely a handsome man. Wow, leader, you look very good when you smile. Ouyang Yingyu turned her head and saw Guifeng smile, and her eyes almost popped out. She completely couldn't maintain her noble, cold, and enchanting image. Her leader's appearance was simply a feast for the eyes. His usual cold and dull wooden appearance, coupled with the deep scar at the corner of his eye, made her almost forget that her leader was actually a handsome man comparable to a noble young master. Unfortunately, she was too familiar with him and couldn't make a move. Ouyang Yingyu's heart twisted. When Guifeng heard her words, he immediately frowned, and the smile on his lips disappeared. If you have nothing to do, go take a look at Hu Zhan's side, don't let him cause any trouble." His voice was slightly heavy, and his face had returned to its previous unsmiling appearance. The current situation was completely brought about by Luo Qingtong. The youth had made his ability and knowledge public. Guifeng didn't know if this was deliberately done to prevent them from confronting those high-ranking mercenary groups. But the youth's actions had indeed saved them a lot of trouble. Not only that, but they also benefited from it. Now that these high-ranking mercenary groups were competing to be on good terms with them because of Luo Qingtong, Guifeng didn't want Hu Zhan and the others to cause trouble and waste the situation that Luo Qingtong had created for them. Okay, I'll go now." Hearing this, the lazy and enchanting smile on Ouyang Yingyu's face suddenly disappeared. She flipped her long hair and walked towards Hu Zhan in a flirtatious manner. At this moment, somewhere in Mercenary City, a group of black-clothed men knelt before Yu Mingquan. "Young Guild Master, this is a list of all the unidentified people who have appeared in Heavenly Wind Mercenary City over the past few days." As they spoke, they handed over the name lists and portraits that they were holding to the man above them. "Yes." Yu Mingqian raised her hand and took the list and portrait from their hands. She quickly confirmed Luo Qingtong's identity. The young man's face was completely different from the portraits on the list, and could be seen at a glance. Yu Mingqian had already seen a trace of Luo Qingtong's face through the restored aura of the inscription pattern man-searching array. Compared with Luo Qingtong's disguised portrait, even though there were some discrepancies, he was still able to determine the other party's identity at a glance. "It's her. Luo Xiaoqi." Yu Mingxuan's white fingers pinched the portrait. The man's fingers had distinct joints and were very slender, looking as if they were made of jade. It was very pleasing to the eye. Chapter 24:18. Now that he had confirmed her identity, it was time for him to perform. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the group of black-robed men kneeling before him hesitated. One of them asked bravely, "Young President, since you've confirmed her identity, why didn't you capture her?" Why did he want them to prepare for that? The group of men in black couldn't understand. "I have my own way of doing things." Yu Mingxuan's eyes, which were as shallow as colored glass, narrowed slightly. He stared at the man in black until he saw the cold sweat on his forehead. Then, he said in a low voice, "Chen Meng is dead. It's very likely that only this person knows what he knows." As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed at the portrait of Luo Qingtong. "Do you think it's more reliable to let her confess on her own, or to capture her and interrogate her with torture?" Before he could finish his words, the group of black-robed men had all knelt in front of him, kowtowing and admitting their mistakes. "We were ignorant, we didn't know the young master's foresight." "No, you're not ignorant at all," Yu Mingxian said casually. The thin lips hidden under the black hood curled up slightly. "You're just too loyal to my adoptive father and the others." As soon as he finished speaking, battle inscriptions shot out from his body one after another. In the blink of an eye, they had surrounded the group of men in black in front of them. The latter and the others had already sensed the deep and heavy murderous intent when they heard his last sentence. They almost jumped up subconsciously, wanting to fight back. However, before they could do anything, the battle inscriptions shot out from Yu Mingxuan's body had already taken their lives. "You?" They looked at the man sitting in front of them in shock. They didn't know how he could release battle inscriptions. Wasn't young President's body so weak that he couldn't cultivate or release battle inscriptions? Could it be that young President had been hiding his strength all these years? Was he putting on a show in front of the President and the elders? The group of men in black was shocked. Yu Mingxian didn't even raise his head to look at them. When their corpses fell to the ground, his cold voice rang out. "Drag them out and feed them to the dogs." "Yes." As Yu Mingxian's voice rang out, in an instant, a few figures appeared from the shadows of the room. These figures were dressed exactly the same as the men in black. They dragged the corpses out in a well-trained manner. As for Yu Mingxian, she coldly watched all of this. There was not the slightest hint of emotion on her face that was as cold and self-restrained as an immortal's. Disobedient dogs should all be eliminated. These people didn't know that the reason why he asked them to investigate Luo Qingtong was to see how loyal they were to him. However, from the looks of it now, he was still not mature enough. "Master, everything has been dealt with." A man in black knelt down and reported to him. "Yes." Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. "Follow the original plan. Also, keep everything about Luo Shaoqi under wraps. Don't leak anything out." "Yes." The man in black lowered his head, bowed, and left. Yu Mingqian's eyes were deep as he looked at Luo Qingtong's portrait. The news of the inscription of God. Chapter 24:19. When Luo Qingtong was pulled out of the crowd by the people of the Red Flame mercenary group, the sky was already dark. The people of the mercenary city refused to disperse. They couldn't wait for Luo Qingtong to speak more. However, it was already very late at night. Guifeng glanced at them coldly and directly asked Hu Zhan and the others to bring Luo Qingtong out. The people of the mercenary group didn't dare to block them for fear of hurting Luo Qingtong. In the end, they could only leave resentfully. After Hu Zhan and the others brought Luo Qingtong out, their clothes were almost torn apart by the group of mercenaries. "Damn, who touched my butt just now?" "His uncle. If I find out, I'll beat him to death." Hu Zhan felt disgusted. Was it easy for him to rescue this little guy from the abyss of suffering? Hearing his words, the people of the Red Flame mercenary group burst into laughter in an instant. "Huh, brother Hu, someone dares to touch your butt? It doesn't matter, you can find the person tomorrow and touch it back. We support you." "That's right. Doesn't that person know that a tiger's butt can't be touched? If he touches it once, he must pay back at least 100 times. The group of people ridiculed Hu Zhan. They were convulsing with laughter and were overjoyed. Hearing these words, Hu Zhan's face turned green. "You little bastards." As he spoke, he rolled up his sleeves and chased after the group of people. The latter and the others quickly ran away. As he ran, he shouted desperately, "Help! Someone wants to kill us to silence us. Hey, brother Hu, let's talk nicely. We didn't touch your butt." The group of people laughed together. When Luo Qingtong, Guifeng and the others saw this scene, they also laughed. Especially Luo Qingtong. After being separated from Su Yu and the others, she hadn't enjoyed this kind of pure joy for a long time. The Red Flame mercenary group in front of her gave her the same feeling as when she was with Su Yu and the others. Seeing her happy smile, Guifeng rubbed her head and said in a low voice, "Thank you for today, little seven." He sincerely thanked Luo Qingtong. "No." Luo Qingtong waved her hand. "I should be the one thanking you. If it weren't for you protecting me today, they would have eaten me alive." Luo Qingtong was very clear. In Mercenary City, whoever had the most power and influence would be the one in the right. Don't look at how the mercenaries seemed to support her. That was because she had the backing of the Red Flame mercenary group. Guifeng and the others seemed to be doing nothing, but they were standing behind her. This meant that if those people wanted to make a move on her, they would have to go through them first. Now, those high-ranked mercenary groups were at a disadvantage. Plus, she didn't hide anything and was willing to tell them about the identification of those mission items. Those people only stopped thinking about it after they got the benefits. Otherwise, how could those people be so easily dismissed? These mercenaries were all rogue cultivators who came and went from water to fire. Without any schemes, they wouldn't even know where they died on the way to snatch resources. Luo Qingtong also grew up like this. Naturally, she knew where these people's weaknesses were and how to deal with them. But the most important thing was that she had the backing of the Red Flame mercenary group. Otherwise, she could only reveal her true ability and strength. That would be even more troublesome. Chapter 24:20. Hearing her words, Guifeng couldn't help but chuckle. He realized that the young man seemed to be very good with words, and he was neither arrogant nor impatient. Although his ability was extraordinary, he didn't have any arrogance at all. Sometimes, he was even a little too modest and shy. Guifeng originally thought that taking care of children would be more troublesome, but seeing such an obedient and sensible Luo Qingtong, he liked her even more. Alright, let's not be modest. Just treat it as us helping each other, no need to thank each other. As he spoke, there was an obvious smile in his eyes. Let's go, and you guys, stop fooling around. He said to Hu Zhan and the others. Humph, big brother, they bullied me, and you didn't do anything about it. Hu Zhan's face was full of resentment. He hadn't gotten back at them yet, and his boss was being too biased. As he spoke, Guifeng glanced at him with an indifferent expression. Do you want to stay here and fight to your heart's content? He said with an indifferent expression. You, stay with him, no. There's no need. Boss, Captain, please spare me. Hu Zhan's face was bitter as he hurriedly begged for mercy. The sky was already dark, who would dare to provoke that crazy woman Ouyang Yingyu? He wouldn't do it even if he was beaten to death. Guifeng looked at him and snorted, then led the group back to the encampment. Luo Qingtong was sandwiched in the middle, and there was a lot of noise. Everyone was very curious about how she could see through the details of those mission items at a glance. They weren't shocked enough when they saw her identify the purple-blooded realgar grass for them at the mercenary club. This time, Luo Qingtong identified a series of items. Only then did everyone realize how powerful her ability was. How did the young man see those almost unnoticeable details? Luo Qingtong naturally wouldn't tell them the secret of her blood eyes. She only said that it was a kind of intuition. She didn't know why, but when she saw the description of the mission and then looked at the mission items, she knew that there should be something different. When she said that, no one felt that there was anything wrong. After all, there were thousands of strange things in this world. It was normal for Luo Qingtong's intuition to be different from others. It could only be said that she was a person blessed by the heavens. When Luo Qingtong heard their words, she suddenly burst into laughter. This was actually not wrong. Regardless of whether it was blood eyes or transmigration, neither of them seemed to be something that ordinary people could possess. It wasn't wrong to say that she was blessed by the heavens. But for the man she loved, she had to stand on the opposite side of the heavens. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed as she thought about it. After being away for so long, she missed Yi Qianxian very much. There were also Su Yu and Su Xiaoxiao. According to the current situation, she would be able to earn enough money in 2 days. However, in order to appease the people of Mercenary City, she had to stay for a few more days before leaving. By then, she would not be so popular anymore, and it would be logical for her to leave. Luo Qingtong thought so and relaxed a little. Soon, she would be able to return to True Spill Continent. For the next few days, Luo Qingtong was escorted out by the Red Flame mercenary group in the morning, and was picked up by them in the evening. In order to reduce the popularity of her side, Luo Qingtong deliberately talked about some of the more common mission items. Chapter 24-21. As a result, the mercenaries naturally couldn't wait to try out the methods they got. When a portion of them returned successfully, more people would try it out. Slowly, the number of people listening to Luo Qingtong's lecture decreased. Of course, even so, the Black Iron mercenary group didn't dare to find trouble with Luo Qingtong. Because they were already being watched by the people of Mercenary City. As long as something happened to Luo Qingtong, they would look for them. What's more, because of the methods taught by Luo Qingtong, the efficiency of the Mercenary City's mercenaries was amazing. The Black Iron Mercenary Group's people were in charge of the Mercenary Association. They were already as busy as a spinning top. They simply couldn't find the time to deal with Luo Qingtong, okay? Today, after Luo Qingtong appraised the last business as usual, she was picked up by the Red Flame Mercenary Group's people. Because of the stability in Mercenary City, Guifeng and the others didn't come out to pick her up. After all, the Red Flame Mercenary Group's people also needed to accept missions in exchange for resources. Of course, with Luo Qingtong there, they never failed a mission. The youth only needed to look at the description of the mission they wanted to accept, and he could think of countless ways for them to complete the mission. Every one of them was extremely efficient and valiant. Every mission's completion rate was the highest. Their harvest was also the most. The Red Flame Mercenary Group's people looked at Luo Qingtong with shining eyes. And Ouyang Yingyu often hugged Luo Qingtong's head, pressed her face against her chest, and happily called her little seven baby. Luo Qingtong was embarrassed by her mushy and seductive way of addressing her. Every time, she had to struggle for a long time before she could struggle out of Ouyang Yingyu's 36D big weapon. It was a critical hit. Every time Luo Qingtong struggled out of Ouyang Yingyu's weapon, she would silently look at her flat chest and silently say 100 times, "This is fake, this is fake. I actually have breasts. B and D are just one more circle." The small illusory shaping pill that Luo Qingtong had taken was very powerful. As long as she didn't have enough strength to remove the effects of the pill, each time she took it, it would last for at least half a month. After all, it was improved by a spirit pill like the illusory form pill. Although it was a shrunken version, it was still not comparable to the effects of ordinary medicinal pills. After Luo Qingtong packed up her things, she greeted the mercenaries who were listening to her explanation in the plaza and left with the person from the Red Flame Mercenary Group who came to pick her up. The two of them left the square and walked towards the Red Flame Mercenary Group's encampment. As soon as they entered a small alley, Luo Qingtong's eyes suddenly sharpened. She quickly raised her head and looked at a certain place in the alley. There was a messy pile of things placed there. It was messy and very messy. There was also a lot of trash among them. The direction of the alley was extremely dark. In this evening, there was a deep and dark aura. "Brother Xiao Yu," Luo Qingtong calmly said to the person from the Red Flame Mercenary Group who came to pick her up, "Let's go to another place today. There is a smell here. I don't feel comfortable smelling it." Luo Qingtong and the people from the Red Flame Mercenary Group who came to pick her up basically walked through this alley, because this road was the closest to their encampment. However, since Luo Qingtong said that the smell here was a bit uncomfortable, the person from the Red Flame Mercenary Group didn't insist. "Okay, let's go to another place." As he spoke, he led her to another path. Chapter 24-22. With a bang, a black figure rushed towards them. Save me." The black figure was trembling badly. He was wearing a robe as thin as a cicada's wing. His entire body was exposed in front of Luo Qingtong and the man from the Red Flame Mercenary Group. "Hey, little seven, don't look." The man from the Red Flame Mercenary Group immediately covered Luo Qingtong's eyes. What a joke, how could he not cover it? The robe was so thin that the 3 points of the other party's body were exposed in front of Luo Qingtong. This little seven was still a child. "Who are you? Why are you dressed so indecently?" The man from the Red Flame Mercenary Group was in a bad mood. After getting along with each other for a period of time, the group of people from the Red Flame Mercenary Group saw Luo Qingtong, who looked like a 13 or 14-year-old, as their little brother. They protected her under their wings. Under such circumstances, they certainly didn't want Luo Qingtong to see such a scene. Wasn't this bringing back a child? This guy wasn't a pervert, right? Or did he have other plans? Thinking of this, the expression of the man from the Red Flame Mercenary Group changed. He looked at the person who suddenly appeared with vigilance. He didn't forget that in this mercenary city, many people had designs on Luo Qingtong. Of course, that was in the past. But that didn't mean that there weren't any now. Thinking of this, he suddenly shouted at the figure who appeared, "If there's nothing else, get lost. We can't help you with anything." It was a woman. At this moment, she was crying and running towards Luo Qingtong and Cheng Xiaoya. The latter's expression was very ugly. While covering Luo Qingtong's eyes, he took her to the side. After all, the woman's breasts were shaking violently, and the triangular area below was naked. If it was in the past, in the brothel, Cheng Xiaoya would enjoy the feeling of such a beautiful woman throwing herself at him. But now that he had Luo Qingtong by his side, he hated that he couldn't lift his foot and kick the other party out. Young master, please save me. We were abducted by a Sect disciple to be his cultivation furnace. We spent a lot of effort to escape. Save me, save me. The woman cried and kept running towards Cheng Xiaoya and Luo Qingtong. The latter kept retreating with Luo Qingtong. At this moment, a series of voices rang out from the entrance of the alley not far away. Search. Search all. Don't let a single one of those who escaped escape. As these voices rang out, the woman's cries stopped. She saw that Luo Qingtong and Cheng Xiaoya had no intention of saving her. She glared at them and screamed, "An ugly monster, a coward. If it's not, who needs your help? Bah!" She spat at Luo Qingtong and Cheng Xiaoya, then turned and ran in another direction. It was obvious that she didn't dare to stay any longer and was going to find someone else to take her in. Seeing her actions, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. She saw that the woman's expression and behavior were not right. She was frivolous and cheap, completely different from what she said about being abducted to be a cultivation furnace. That was why she deliberately ignored her. She didn't expect that the other party would not only fail to ask for help, but also scold her and Cheng Xiaoya before leaving. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Chapter 24-23. "Aya, miss, don't go." Luo Qingtong shouted at this moment. She deliberately looked in the direction of those voices and said, "Don't worry, I will get justice for you. Those people treated you as human cauldrons. It's too abominable." Her voice rang out, and in an instant, the people who had been searching around the alleyway rushed over. Ah! When the woman saw that Luo Qingtong had led those people over, she screamed and ran out crazily. However, no matter how fast she ran, how could she outrun those people who were here to catch them? After a while, she was caught. Slap! A man who seemed to be the leader slapped her hard on the face. "Bitch, it's your fortune to be sent to serve Elder Zhang. How dare you run?" As he spoke, he glared coldly at the woman and said, "Speak. Where's young master's new favorite? Where did you take him?" I don't know." After the woman was caught, she went limp. Her body was trembling, and she wanted to use her body to seduce those people who came to catch her. However, these people were already used to her behavior and ignored her. The leader of the group broke her hand. "Speak," he shouted coldly. I really don't know." The woman couldn't bear it and broke down crying. The man kept interrogating and broke her limbs. When he realized that he couldn't get anything out of her, he gritted his teeth and asked people to carry her back. Before leaving, he looked coldly at Luo Qingtong and Cheng Xiaoya. "Shut your mouths for things you shouldn't ask and things you shouldn't care about. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson." As he spoke, he glanced at the symbol of the Red Flame mercenary group embroidered on Cheng Xiaoya's clothes and left with the crowd. Looking at their backs, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. There were other sounds in the alley. It was the sound of those people searching around. After an unknown amount of time, those people seemed to have not found anything. In the end, they could only leave while cursing. "Tsk, where did this disciple come from? I'm speechless." Cheng Xiaoya didn't remove his hand from Luo Qingtong's eyes until those people left. Because he didn't know how long those people would search here, in order to avoid a conflict with them and injure Luo Qingtong, he simply stayed here. Seeing that these people had obviously left, he then prepared to leave with Luo Qingtong. "Let's go, little seven, I didn't scare you, did I?" he asked with concern. "No." Luo Qingtong shook her head. "Well, don't blame Brother Xiaoyu for restraining you just now. You silly boy, that woman just now is not simple. You haven't seen any woman before and you still want to save her." "I had no choice, Brother Xiaoyu, I had to stop you." It turned out that after Luo Qingtong screamed, she attracted those people. Cheng Xiaoya was afraid that Luo Qingtong would really get into a conflict with those people because of that woman and get hurt, so he deliberately restrained her so that she couldn't speak again. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly. She couldn't tell Cheng Xiaoya that she deliberately called those people over. Forget it, let her be a pure and harmless little white rabbit. Chapter 24-24. Translations. Luo Qingtong said seriously. Then she seemed to have thought of something and glanced at the alley they were going to take. In the end, she didn't say anything and went back with Cheng Xiaoya. In the next few days, those people were constantly searching for something in Mercenary City, causing the entire city to be in a state of panic. Luo Qingtong saw this and didn't say anything. On the fourth day, those people finally gave up and left as if they had something urgent to attend to. After they left, Luo Qingtong and a member of the Red Flame mercenary group who came to pick her up went back through the nearest alley. Just as she walked to the entrance of the alley, a swaying figure rushed towards her from the messy intersection not far ahead. "Save me." After he finished speaking, he fainted in front of Luo Qingtong. "Ah!" The person who was in charge of picking up Luo Qingtong wanted to push him away, but he suddenly fell down. The person from the Red Flame mercenary group was also dumbfounded. Most importantly, he forgot to cover Luo Qingtong's eyes. Damn, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. Looking at the naked man in front of her who was wearing a transparent silk robe like the woman from before, she really didn't know what to say. It stung her eyes. Luo Qingtong knew that there was a person hiding here. It was very likely that he was the beloved pet of the young master that those people were looking for. But she didn't expect that the other party was wearing the same stinging clothes as the woman from before. What kind of weird hobby did that young master have? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She looked at a member of the Red Flame mercenary group beside her. "Brother Zhu Li, why didn't you stop him? At least stand in front of her and block her." Cough. That member of the Red Flame mercenary group named Zhu Li coughed lightly and immediately said, "It's okay. He's a man. He's not afraid to look." What he meant was that Luo Qingtong was also a man. It didn't matter if a man looked at a man. Luo Qingtong was speechless. How was she going to tell him that she was actually a woman? Forget it. She would just treat it as if she was blinded by shit. Luo Qingtong asked Zhu Li to help him up and bring him back. She couldn't help it. She couldn't help it, right? As for leaving him alone, Luo Qingtong wanted to. However, this person was lying dead in front of her. Not only that, but he was also clutching her clothes tightly. What could Luo Qingtong do? She couldn't just kick him away. That would ruin her current image as Luo Shaoqi. Luo Qingtong asked Zhu Li to take off his outer robe and wrap it around him before bringing him back to the base of the Red Flame mercenary group. 7. What's wrong? Guifeng and the others were shocked when they saw that they brought a man back. Especially Guifeng, he rushed to Luo Qingtong's side and looked her up and down. After finding that she was fine, he looked at Zhu Li with a serious face and asked, "What's going on?" "I don't know." Zhu Li scratched his head and said honestly, this person suddenly rushed out from the side and asked us to save him. He should be the beloved pet of the young master from the sect who caused a commotion. The incident a few days ago was very big. The entire mercenary city was in a mess. Everyone in the Red Flame mercenary group knew about it. Hearing this, Guifeng frowned and looked at that person. Chapter 24-25. Let him into the house first. Helplessness appeared on his face. If this person was brought back by someone else, he definitely wouldn't have taken him in. But Luo Qingtong, this little girl, was kind-hearted. She even interceded for the girl who scolded her. If Cheng Xiaoye hadn't restrained her, she might have gotten into a conflict with those people from the sections. Who knew how much she would have suffered by then? Under such circumstances, he naturally couldn't kick out the person she saved. Otherwise, this little girl would be very sad. With that in mind, Guifeng had no choice but to take her in. Luo Qingtong didn't know what Guifeng was thinking. She was tangled up with the person Julie was carrying on his back. He clutched her sleeve and wouldn't let go. Would he ask her to take care of this person later? Luo Qingtong frowned. She tried to pull her sleeve back several times, but to no avail. She couldn't let Julie and the others see that something was wrong. Luo Qingtong could only give up. She followed Julie into the room. The latter put the person on the bed and said to her, "Little Seven, take care of him first. I have something to do with the leader. I'll come find you later." As he spoke, he walked out directly, leaving Luo Qingtong alone. Her lips twitched as she looked at the person lying on the couch. Fortunately, Julie didn't take away the clothes wrapped around the person when he left. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would definitely turn around and leave. As for this person, what did his life have to do with her? It was already good enough that she could bring him back here and let the people of the Red Flame mercenary group take him in. Luo Qingtong frowned and wiped the person's face. At this moment, the person slowly opened his eyes. "You?" His eyes were first filled with vigilance and fear. With a swoosh, he crawled up from the couch, hugging his outer robe as he cowered in a corner of the couch. "You, who are you?" He looked at Luo Qingtong with an unconcealable panic in his eyes. The glaze in her eyes flickered, making the whites of her eyes look like flowing clouds, beautiful and clear to the extreme. The dirt on his face had been wiped off by Luo Qingtong, revealing a face that was as cold and noble as a banished immortal. He looked high and mighty, unapproachable. However, the light in his eyes was too pure and clear, making him look as pure and moving as a child who didn't know anything about the world. Such a pair of eyes, coupled with his high and mighty face, gave off an inexplicable feeling of an immortal with broken wings and falling into the mortal world. Luo Qingtong looked at the other party's expression. She probably understood why those people from the sects had made such a big fuss in Mercenary City in order to find him. If it wasn't for those people suddenly leaving due to an urgent matter, they would have found this person sooner or later. However, the other party was smart and knew to stay in that place without moving. He didn't call for help, nor did he run away. Otherwise, she was afraid that he wouldn't be able to last until those people left. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She didn't explain her identity to the other party. She only threw the handkerchief in her hand over and said to him, "Since you're already awake, wipe your face yourself. That's right, change your clothes. Don't wear the clothes you're wearing." Luo Qingtong's lips twitched as she looked at the other party crawling and cowering. The red robe wrapped around his body was about to fall off again. Faintly discernible jade-colored skin was revealed through the gaps of the robe, with two dark red spots sandwiched between. Chapter 24-26. With Luo Qingtong's words, the man was stunned for a moment. He looked down at his appearance at the moment, and his face suddenly blushed. "Thank you." He thanked her with difficulty and took the clothes that Luo Qingtong handed over. By now, he had somewhat recovered from his emotional state. Maybe it was because Luo Qingtong's attitude was too peaceful, or maybe it was because he had recognized that Luo Qingtong was the person he asked for help in his coma. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was no longer filled with fear and panic. "Thank you for saving me, can you turn around first?" he said while biting his lips. His pair of clear, shallow glass-like eyes looked at Luo Qingtong helplessly and shyly. When the young man looked over, he couldn't help but lower his head again. That cold and noble face looked like a banished immortal. Because of his appearance at the moment, it inexplicably made people want to torture and ravage him. Innocence and seduction were intertwined. Although the other party was a man, Luo Qingtong still thought of the word "stunner" in her mind. No wonder those people kept searching for him. Fortunately, the other party had something to do and left. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would never bring this big trouble to the Red Flame mercenary group. She brought trouble to the latter and others, and also brought trouble to herself. But even now, the other party couldn't stay here for long. After all, who knew if those people would come back and look for him again after finishing their business? Luo Qingtong and Zhu Li were very careful when they brought him back. The man's body was also covered by a robe, and his face was covered with dirt. His appearance couldn't be seen clearly. But it was better to be safe than sorry. Luo Qingtong wouldn't let the people of the Red Flame mercenary group get into trouble because of her. For her, she could just walk away. But what about the people of the Red Flame mercenary group? They took her in, and she couldn't harm them, right? If you have nothing else, leave here. She turned her back and allowed the man to change his clothes. Those people have already left this place. I'm sure you already know that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have run out to ask me for help at that time. But you also know that those people are looking for you very hard. I don't want to cause trouble for our mercenary group. I'll give you some money later. You can go now. Luo Qingtong had already earned a great deal of money. She had more than enough money to investigate the true Spill continent. She didn't mind giving the other party some money to send this trouble away. However, as soon as she finished speaking, a warm body suddenly pressed against her back, followed by the panicked voice of the man. Don't send me away." His voice was frantic and uneasy. He hugged Luo Qingtong from behind and sobbed, "I have nowhere else to go. Please, can you take me in?" The moment his body pressed against hers, Luo Qingtong subconsciously wanted to break his wrist and throw him out. But thinking of her role as Luo Qingtong abruptly restrained the impulse in her heart. She pretended to be frightened and broke free from the other party's shackles. She looked at him with vigilance and said, "So what? I can't let our mercenary group get involved in danger for you, right?" Chapter 24-27. Luo Qingtong stared at him as she said this. There was an undetectable coldness in the depths of her eyes. His appearance was too inexplicable. He fell in front of her and asked her to save him. There were so many people coming and going in the alley at that time. Why did he choose her? If it was because she was a teenager, it was easier for him to let his guard down. Then why was he pestering her to take him in? Luo Qingtong was just acting as the innocent and harmless Luo Xiaoqi. But in her bones, she was the cautious evil pupil. The supreme pupil master who had been chased by countless people in the 24th century. How could she not be prepared for the appearance of the other party? Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, the man was stunned. Then he bit his lips and said, "It was that day, at the entrance of the alley. I heard what you said to Fu Ji. I only believe you." When he said this, Luo Qingtong instantly understood what was going on. Fu Ji? Luo Qingtong thought of the woman she met in the alley that day when she suddenly changed her route. Was he talking about her? Luo Qingtong thought carefully. Then her lips twitched. She remembered now. At that time, Fu Ji couldn't ask for help. She even scolded Luo Qingtong and Cheng Xiaoya. In order to teach her a lesson, Luo Qingtong deliberately led those people over. So this man heard what she said deliberately and thought that she wanted to save that woman? Because of that, he took a liking to her? No wonder he didn't ask for help after those people left. Instead, he threw himself in front of her. Luo Qingtong looked at him with a headache. Meanwhile, the man had already changed his clothes. He was wearing the clothes that Luo Qingtong prepared. Although they were made of coarse linen, they couldn't hide his tall and elegant figure. If it weren't for the clear and pure light in his eyes. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the man in front of him was a prodigy from one of those aristocratic families. But at this moment, he was looking at Luo Qingtong with a fearful and uneasy expression. Tears welled up in his eyes. Can you not chase me away? He begged Luo Qingtong helplessly. I can do a lot of things. If you want me to serve you, I can. As he spoke, he bit his lips hard. Sorrow flashed in his eyes as he raised his hand to pull Luo Qingtong's belt. Hey, wait. Luo Qingtong quickly held her belt. What a joke. She didn't have that hobby at all, okay? Moreover, even if she did, she didn't have that ability. Luo Qingtong's movements were extremely fast. Almost instantly, she held down the other's hand to prevent him from taking away her belt. Although her small illusory shaping pill had allowed her to grow an Adam's apple and flatten her chest, it was still not enough. But there was something below that absolutely wasn't there. Luo Qingtong didn't want to expose herself in the other's hands. And when Luo Qingtong held down the other's hand, her eyes suddenly flashed. Luo Qingtong detected that there was no cultivation in the other's body at all. Did she really think too much before? Did he just happen to ask her for help? Luo Qingtong's head hurt even more as she thought about it. If this was the case, she couldn't force him out. Besides, this was not in line with Luo Xiaoqi's character. Okay, you can stay here first. Seeing the other's eyes lit up in an instant, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. What's your name? She asked. Yu Xian. Knowing that he could stay here, the man's heart seemed to be very happy. However, the expression on his face remained cold and indifferent. My name is Yu Xian. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said, Yu as in the middle of the sky. Xian as in the mystery of this life. When he said this, something seemed to flash in the depths of his eyes. Chapter 24-28. When he said this, something seemed to flash in the depths of his eyes. It looked unusually deep and gloomy. But this feeling disappeared in a flash. When he looked up at Luo Qingtong again, he had that innocent and shy look again. You can call me Ah Xian or Ah Yu. He looked at Luo Qingtong. Can I call you by your name? He asked Luo Qingtong carefully. He wanted to ask, but he was afraid that Luo Qingtong would refuse. Yes. Luo Qingtong was a little white rabbit, but now there was a little white rabbit who was even more white than her. She looked at the other party's expectant eyes and couldn't find the words to refuse. Anyway, he would know her name sooner or later. My name is Luo Xiaoqi. You can call me Xiaoqi. She said to the man. As for the other party asking her to call him Ah Xian or Ah Yu, she didn't say a word. She was not used to calling people she was not familiar with so intimately. Oh. The man seemed a little disappointed when he didn't hear Luo Qingtong call his name. But thinking that Luo Qingtong could let him stay, he quickly cheered up. Is there anything I can do for you? He looked at Luo Qingtong carefully as he spoke. Afraid that she would misunderstand, he quickly said, I'm talking about something in life, such as serving tea and water. His voice became lower and lower as he spoke. This was the only thing he could do. He wondered if the other party would despise him. The man's face showed such thoughts. Luo Qingtong couldn't pretend not to see it. Looking at his uneasy look, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly, and she said, "It's okay. I don't need it. But you can tell me what you can do." It could be seen that the man was very worried that she would drive him away again. But even if Luo Qingtong saw it, she wouldn't make any promises to him. To her, this person was neither a relative nor a friend of hers. Taking him in temporarily was already her greatest kindness. If it weren't for the fact that she was still Luo Qingtong's character, she wouldn't have bothered to talk to her at all. Luo Qingtong hated trouble the most when she was outside. However, in order to maintain Luo Xiaoqi's image, she had no choice but to let him stay. However, this did not mean that she would help him to the end. At this moment, even if she was Luo Xiaoqi, she was just a little naive. She was not a naive saint. She knew what was important. If Yu Xian was capable, he could stay in the Red Flame mercenary group with his own ability. But if he didn't, it would depend on what Guifeng and the others thought. Luo Qingtong wouldn't ask Guifeng and the others to make him stay. The other party wasn't worthy enough for her to do so. Upon hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Yu Xian looked slightly embarrassed. He lowered his head as an awkward expression flashed across his cold face. "I only know how to serve people." His voice was extremely low. It was so low that Luo Qingtong couldn't hear it at all if she hadn't pricked up her ears. Luo Qingtong looked at him. Her mind was stuck for a moment. "Wait." She looked at the embarrassed expression that flashed across the other party's fairy-like face. Then she thought of what Yu Xian said to her before about serving her, so, it wasn't the service she was thinking of, right? That? Chapter 24-29. In order to confirm her thoughts, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but ask. She hoped that she was wrong. Yeah, Yu Xian glanced at her and then lowered his head to tug at her belt. Hey. Wait. I got it. Luo Qingtong pressed her belt and hurriedly took a step back. No, several big steps. She retreated to the round table in the room and sat down, pouring herself a cup of tea to calm herself down. Damn, that was so shocking. Such a cold and fairy-like man turned out to be, the words, "a beloved pet of a young master from a sect," flashed through her mind. Damn it, she didn't think too much about it before. Now that he thought about it, the word doting clearly had a meaning that couldn't be any dirtier. No wonder when she met this man, he was naked. She thought that the young master from a sect had some unique hobby of looking at naked people. It turned out that he did have a unique hobby, but he was gay. And he was gay. Luo Qingtong thought of the woman she met in the alley before. She must have run away with Yu Xian. There were several other people who ran away with them. However, those people were all captured. She was secretly taken back by some mercenaries who were lustful and secretly hid away. They were also taken away after being searched by those people. The only one who was spared was Yu Xian, who had been quietly staying in the alley without calling for help or running away. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched even more. Well, I don't need your service. You don't need to serve anyone anymore. After all, you have left that place. Luo Qingtong said. Well, I'll leave first. Have a good rest. Luo Qingtong felt that she'd better leave here. Otherwise, she didn't know what other shocking words he would say. It wouldn't be good if he kept pestering her. As Luo Xiaoqi, she couldn't do anything casually. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong hurriedly got up and left. Damn, this was the first time she was confessed to as a man. She couldn't handle it at all, okay? Luo Qingtong clutched her belt tightly. Yu Xian lowered his head in disappointment as he watched her leave. But under his lowered brows, a faint cold light flickered faintly. Luo Xiaoqi, Xie. The corners of Yu Mingxuan's lips curled slightly. He was very calm and composed. It seemed that the other party was also very good at disguising himself. Now, it was time to see who was stronger. That's right. Yu Mingqian was Yu Xian. He deliberately designed a play so that he could sneak to Luo Qingtong's side. In order to unearth a person's biggest secret, it was naturally best to become the person closest to her. Luo Qingtong's disguise as Luo Xiaoqi gave him a good opportunity to approach her. Otherwise, if the other party was still the mysterious Xie Qi, even if he died in front of the other party, she wouldn't care, right? He just didn't know what she was investigating in Mercenary City. Yu Mingqian asked his subordinates to investigate for a long time, but they still couldn't find anything. Luo Qingtong didn't do anything in Mercenary City. It was as if she really had nothing to investigate. But if she had nothing to do, why would she come to Mercenary City for no reason? Yu Mingqian lowered his eyes slightly and tapped the couch in front of him with his fingertips. But he didn't think for too long. Chapter 24-30. Even the things that his foster father and the others had hidden from him, the things that they didn't want him to know, the things behind Chen Meng, he would clearly investigate them. If it was really related to the god's inscriptions, then he would definitely take it. No one would be able to stop him. Yu Mingqian's eyes were cold. But soon, the expression in his light-glazed eyes changed again. They became clear and ignorant. With an uneasy expression, Yu Mingqian, or Yu Xian, went to sleep. After Luo Qingtong left Yu Mingqian's room, she went to where Guifeng and the others were. She asked them about the sect young master in detail. But since Yu Mingqian had designed this play, he naturally made sure it was foolproof. That young master from the sect was real, and so were those slaves that escaped from him. But Yu Mingqian was a fake. The real sect young master's beloved pet had already died. The name Yu Xian was completely made up by Yu Mingqian. But who could ask the sect young master what his beloved pet was called? Therefore, the information that Luo Qingtong obtained from Guifeng was not wrong. The sect young master had indeed lost his beloved pet, and the other party was a frequent customer of Mercenary City. There was no problem with his identity. After Luo Qingtong inquired about these matters, she no longer doubted Yu Mingqian. How would she know that she had been tricked? Just as Luo Qingtong was searching for information about that young master from a sect, a few figures arrived at the entrance of Mercenary City. Master, this is Mercenary City of the Heavenly Wind region. If that Xie Qi is really the evil doctor, she should have come to Mercenary City to investigate if she wanted to return to the true Spill continent. Bei Qing said to the man in front of her. Yi Qianxian nodded. His face was hidden behind a white jade mask. It was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. Behind him, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others also wore white jade masks, covering their faces. They had no choice but to do this. The people of Tiandu were still searching for Yi Qianxian's whereabouts. His Majesty was really angry this time. He was determined to take Yi Qianxian back and marry him before he turned 28. Moreover, he insisted on denying the existence of Luo Qingtong. They came to look for Luo Qingtong. They could not let the people of Tiandu discover their identities. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong's safety would be in danger. Bei Qing and Feng Yu were both people who served Yi Qianxian. Their appearances were familiar to the people of Tiandu, so they naturally had to wear white jade masks to cover their faces. To avoid being recognized by the people of Tiandu. It was Bei Qing's idea to come to Mercenary City. She had always been a careless person, but now her mind was actually sharp. When Yi Qianxian and the others went to Sky Wind Inscription City, they couldn't find Luo Qingtong. Bei Qing's mind flashed. If Luo Qingtong wanted to return to the true Spill continent, she would naturally look for a place to investigate if she didn't know the way. Then, there was likely to be a shadow of her in Mercenary City. As for why they thought that Luo Qingtong didn't know the way, that was because Song Cheng was also crazily looking for Luo Qingtong. The group was originally prepared to contact him and ask him about Xia Qi's true identity. They wanted to know if she was really Luo Qingtong. But they felt that someone was watching Song Cheng. Out of caution, Yi Qianxian and the others didn't contact him again. Chapter 24-31. After all, in this world, there were many people with the same name and surname, and even people with similar naming habits. Evil and 7 didn't mean anything. But what about Song City? This was Luo Qingtong's master. When Yi Qianxian was in True Spill Continent, he knew some things about him. But he didn't expect that the other party would be from Sky Wind region, Sky Wind Inscription City. If the other party was the one who summoned Luo Qingtong, then Luo Qingtong's disappearance in True Spill Continent was very logical. Yi Qianxian and the others didn't stay in Sky Wind Inscription City for too long. As soon as Beiqing mentioned Mercenary City, they immediately rushed over to Mercenary City. Unfortunately, if it weren't for the fact that we can't use the 10-directional dragon ring, we would have been able to determine the whereabouts of the evil doctor. Beiqing said regretfully. It's fine. Feng Yu said, even so, it's still better than His Majesty and the others discovering our whereabouts, Master, and the whereabouts of the evil doctor. Previously, when Master had forcefully left Sky Capital, His Majesty and the others didn't know that Yi Qianxian was looking for Luo Qingtong. They thought that Luo Qingtong was still in the 9-star Desolate Domain. That was the name of the star field where True Spill Continent was located. Because they didn't know that Yi Qianxian was looking for Luo Qingtong, Sky Capital's emperor wasn't angry at Luo Qingtong. But if he knew that Yi Qianxian had disobeyed his orders for Luo Qingtong, risking his meridians to leave Sky Capital, and even fighting with him, His Majesty would definitely make a move on Luo Qingtong. At that time, the evil doctor's safety would be worrying. Therefore, when Yi Qianxian attacked with all his strength, he also sealed the 10-directional dragon ring. Although this would make the process of finding Luo Qingtong much more difficult, it was still better than putting Luo Qingtong in danger. Everyone knew the importance of this matter. Beiqing immediately stopped talking. The group plunged into Mercenary City and soon found out about the existence of Luo Qingtong. Luo Xiaoqi? Yi Qianxian's brows furrowed slightly. Hidden under the mask, there was a hint of solemnity. The other party's name sounded like Luo Qingtong. However, this Luo Xiaoqi is a teenager. Feng Yu said in a low voice, Master, I've checked carefully and looked from afar. The other party is indeed a genuine man. He shouldn't be an evil doctor. Luo Qingtong was a woman. Even though they had received news that Xia Qi was a man, Feng Yu and the others had not seen it with their own eyes. What's more, it wasn't like Luo Qingtong didn't have the experience of dressing up as a man, so everyone didn't care too much about it. He thought that Luo Qingtong had disguised herself as a man and became Xia Qi. But at this moment, Feng Yu and the others saw with their own eyes that Luo Qingtong had an Adam's apple when she was explaining on the square. This couldn't be faked. When Feng Yu and the others reported to Yi Qianxian, they were full of disappointment. That woman is very cunning. When it came to Luo Qingtong, Yi Qianxian's eyes softened. Even his cold voice had a trace of warmth. He doted on her without knowing it. It's not impossible to fake an Adam's apple. He thought of the scene when he first fought with Luo Qingtong in the sub-city of the Black Field because she pretended to be a man. He instantly chuckled and then snorted. I'll go and meet him in person. Don't interfere. It wasn't that Yi Qianxian didn't trust Beiqing and Feng Yu's intelligence-gathering ability. Chapter 24-32. Yi Qianxian was going to check her identity in person to prevent her from deceiving Beiqing and Feng Yu again. After all, before confirming Luo Qingtong's identity, they couldn't expose her identity at will, so as not to attract the people of Heaven Capital. Yi Qianxian had used all his strength to break out of Heaven Capital. If the Emperor of Heaven Capital came to catch her again, he wouldn't be able to use all his strength again. Because his meridians couldn't bear it anymore. Yes. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and others nodded. There was a glimmer of hope in their hearts. They hoped that Luo Qingtong was Luo Qingtong, but she hid her identity too well. Master knew the evil doctor better than them. If he did it, he might be able to find out a different result. Thinking of Luo Qingtong's strange and unpredictable abilities and means, everyone's face twitched slightly. If it was known that they couldn't even defeat a person from a low-level star region and a low-level continent, and were often fooled by her many means, the eyes of all the people of Heaven Capital would probably fall out of their sockets. However, if the evil doctor hadn't been so different, Master wouldn't have been so deeply entangled and unable to stop. Only the evil doctor was worthy of Master, who was so powerful. Those people of Heaven Capital were really short-sighted. Especially His Majesty, who wanted to force Master to comply and marry according to his wishes. It was really ridiculous. If the evil doctor rose, those noble ladies of Heaven Capital wouldn't even be worthy of carrying her shoes. The group of people saluted and left. In the Red Flame mercenary group, Luo Qingtong didn't know that Yi Qianxian had come to find her. She squatted in the bathtub, which was half the height of a person, submerged in the water up to her shoulders. While washing her body, she unconsciously stroked the knuckle on her left ring finger. There, the 9 phoenix ring was originally worn. But at this moment, the ring was taken off by Luo Qingtong, placed in the palm of her hand, and carefully examined it. Luo Qingtong had been injecting spiritual power into the 9 phoenix ring to see if she could contact Yi Qianxian's habits. But every time, it was unsuccessful. However, just now, when she was about to take off her clothes after taking a shower, she accidentally slipped the 9 netherworld phoenix ring off her finger. What was going on? Except for Yi Qianxian, no one else could take off this ring, including Luo Qingtong. Why did he take it down today? Luo Qingtong's expression was somewhat grave. She carefully examined the 9 nether phoenix ring and didn't find anything wrong with it. If it weren't for this accident, she probably wouldn't have known that the 9 nether phoenix ring could be taken off. What was going on? Could something have happened to Yi Qianxian's Xiaofan dragon ring? Luo Qingtong was thinking when she suddenly heard someone knocking on the door. Little 7. Yu Xian's voice came from outside. Let me get you some hot water. Hearing Yu Xian's voice, Luo Qingtong instantly had a headache. Not because of anything else, but because this person had been pestering her ever since she saved him. Especially when he just woke up and saw the people of the Red Flame mercenary group. She didn't know if it was the life with that sect's young master that stimulated him, but when he saw Hu Zhan and a group of tall and strong mercenaries, he was scared and desperately hid beside her. Hu Zhan and the others didn't know what was going on, but Luo Qingtong was very clear. Seeing Yu Xian hiding behind her with a pale face and a pair of cold and clear eyes full of fear, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly, but she couldn't refuse him. Chapter 24-33. What made Luo Qingtong's head hurt even more was that she didn't know what kind of enslavement education he received from that sect's young master. He wholeheartedly believed that if he wanted to repay Luo Qingtong for saving his life, he had to serve her well. And this service, of course, wasn't the kind of service one would think of, but the simple kind of service. But Luo Qingtong didn't need it. She had a lot of secrets, and she didn't want others to find out that she was a girl, let alone let Yu Xian serve her by her side. Therefore, she directly refused. But Yu Xian refused to give up and silently worked for Luo Qingtong, and the people of the Red Flame mercenary group were happy to see it. After all, Luo Qingtong was the youngest guy in the Red Flame mercenary group, so they were naturally willing to pamper her. There was nothing bad about having someone take care of her life. For this reason, they even took the initiative to hand over some of Luo Qingtong's matters to Yu Xian. They were simply a group of cheating pig teammates. Hu Zhan also teased Luo Qingtong. Yu Xian probably had an obvious nestling mentality towards her. After all, Luo Qingtong saved him, so he naturally wanted to do his best to repay her. What kind of nestling mentality was this? Your nestling is so big? Luo Qingtong's heart was so stifled that she wished she could beat Hu Zhan and the other guys who made trouble for her to death. God knows how hard it was for her to refuse recently. If she hadn't eaten the small illusion pill, her identity as a girl might have already been exposed. No need. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched slightly as she said to the door, I've already washed up. As she spoke, she quickly got up from the bathtub and put away the 9 Netherworld Phoenix ring in her hand. Then, she dried her body a few times, put on a set of clean clothes, and opened the door. Oh, under the moonlight outside, Yu Xian's figure was slender, his skin was like jade, and he was carrying a bucket of hot water in his hand. This action didn't suit him at all. But when Yu Xian did it, he seemed to have an immortal aura. Even the action of carrying hot water didn't damage his temperament at all. He looked like an immortal descending from the 9 heavens under the moonlight. But now, this banished immortal looked disappointedly at Luo Qingtong, who was already wearing a new set of clothes. However, Yu Xian quickly thought of something. His eyes lit up as he said, should I massage your back? Before Luo Qingtong could refuse, he had already walked into Luo Qingtong's room and led her to the round table in the middle of the room. My skills are very good. Little Seven, you can try. As he spoke, he smiled and placed his hand on Luo Qingtong's shoulder. However, just as he was about to do so, Luo Qingtong grabbed his wrist. Yu Xian, you don't have to do this. This is no longer the place you used to be. Saving you was just a matter of convenience. You don't have to thank me. Luo Qingtong looked helpless. She didn't like other people touching her body. Moreover, she still had many secrets hidden in her body. Little Seven doesn't like me, right? After Yu Xian's hand was grabbed by Luo Qingtong, his body stiffened. Then, he silently lowered his head and said in a low and slightly hoarse voice, I know Little Seven thinks I'm dirty, so I didn't recommend myself. I'm not worthy of you. I just want to repay you. After all, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been able to escape. He paused and said, Little Seven found out I was there that day, right? Thank you for not telling those people. Luo Qingtong raised her brows at Yu Xian's words. So this was why he was so determined to marry her? But what the hell did he mean by saying he was dirty? She didn't think that way at all, okay? Luo Qingtong frowned and was about to speak when. Chapter 24-34. Luo Qingtong pressed Yu Xian's shoulder and pressed him down on the table. Shoo. She raised her index finger and put it on Yu Xian's lips. Then, she suddenly raised her hand and extinguished the candlelight in the room. In the darkness, Yu Mingqian's eyes were cold. When Luo Qingtong made her move, he thought that he had exposed some flaw and she had seen through him. He almost made his move. What's going on? He narrowed his eyes slightly. Using Luo Qingtong's action of pressing him down on the round table, he approached her silently. Almost half of his body was leaning against Lin Mengya. After getting along with her for a few days, Yu Mingqian found that Luo Qingtong was extraordinarily vigilant. Not only him, but even the people of the Red Flame mercenary group found it difficult to get close to her. The young man looked easygoing and easy to talk to, but in fact, he had wrapped his heart up and did not allow others to get close to him easily. Yu Mingqian was thinking about how to get close to her. If he guessed correctly, Luo Qingtong had stayed in Mercenary City for a long time. It was very likely that she would leave this place in a few days. By then, all his efforts would be in vain. He had racked his brains to get close to her, but it would be of no use. Thinking of this, Yu Mingqian's eyes turned cold. He was good at disguising himself. After so many years, Luo Qingtong was the first person who made him feel helpless. Yu Mingqian confirmed that there was no problem with his current identity and persona. If it were someone else, it would be easy for them to sympathize with him and take him under their wings to protect him. The people of the Red Flame mercenary group kept providing him with ways to get close to Luo Qingtong. However, Luo Qingtong did not pay much attention to him. Her attitude towards him was no different from that of the other people in Mercenary City. This made Yu Mingqian feel very troubled. When he got close, Luo Qingtong was also very uncomfortable. She frowned slightly and looked at the handsome face in front of her. Yu Mingqian's voice seemed to be close to her ear. His hot breath blew on her ears. Luo Qingtong knew that Yu Mingqian was probably afraid that others would hear him, so he deliberately lowered his voice and whispered into her ear. However, she still almost threw Yu Mingqian away. For Luo Qingtong, Yu Mingqian's proximity to her was enough to trigger her body's automatic counterattack. Nothing. Luo Qingtong furrowed her brows and put some distance between her and Yu Mingqian. Stay here and don't move. I'll be back soon. There was someone outside. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes flickered slightly as she looked at the figure outside the room. The other party's strength was extremely high. They had infiltrated her courtyard without alerting anyone. Furthermore, none of the array formations that she had set up around the room had given off any warning. If Luo Qingtong didn't have a pair of bloody pupils, she would have been killed. Most likely, he wouldn't even be able to discover the other party. Luo Qingtong wasn't sure if the other party was related to those black-clothed men. If those black-clothed men came to her door, she must leave immediately. Otherwise, not only her, but also the people of the Red Flame mercenary group would suffer. Luo Qingtong turned around and rushed out. Shua. Outside, Yi Qianming's figure had just approached Luo Qingtong's room when he instantly felt an aura rush out from the front. Have I been discovered? Chapter 24:35. His eyes lit up and he was very suspicious that the other party was Luo Qingtong. After all, with his strength and power, even if he was injured because he had temporarily used all his strength, it was not something that ordinary people could detect. Not to mention, he had deliberately hidden his figure. Could the other party be Luo Qingtong? As he thought so, he was about to speak when his eyes were fixed on Luo Qingtong's face. The large birthmark covered Luo Qingtong's face. After her special rendering and carving, it almost covered half of her face. With Yi Qianming's eyesight, he could naturally distinguish between what was fake and what was real. Most of the birthmark on her face was real. Yi Qianming looked at it and his eyes darkened. And Luo Qingtong took advantage of his stupefaction to rush out of her courtyard and leave the Red Flame mercenary group's encampment. Who are you? Luo Qingtong led Yi Qianming to a dark alley and then stared at the man in front of her with burning eyes. And because Yi Qianming was not completely sure of her identity, he did not use all his strength. Instead, he followed her lead and appeared in this alley with her. He stared at Luo Qingtong's face and still did not give up. This woman was full of tricks and cunning. Perhaps the birthmark was one of her tricks. Yi Qianming would not believe it until he confirmed it with his own eyes. When he first met Luo Qingtong, he was deceived by her. Thinking of how Luo Qingtong tricked him with bananas, deliberately letting him touch her and deceiving him, Yi Qianming's eyes were extremely deep. You are Luo Xiaoqi? Yi Qianming's eyes were fixed on her. Do you know Luo Qingtong? His voice was hoarse with obvious depression and distortion. As soon as he said this, Luo Qingtong's heart was suddenly shocked. Could it be that the other party was really one of those black-robed men, and that they had already found out her identity and were here to test her? One had to know that Luo Qingtong was Song Cheng's disciple. She was specially summoned by him, but she failed in the end. In Heavenly Wind Inscription City, this wasn't a secret. The other party came here to suspect that she was Xia Qi and Luo Qingtong. As she thought of this, her heart was very heavy, but her face was calm and composed, and her expression did not change. I don't know what you're talking about. What Luo Qingtong? Is that a woman? I'm a man. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Fortunately, she had obtained the pill formula for the illusory form pill and improved it into a small illusory form pill. Otherwise, she would definitely not be able to conceal her identity as Luo Qingtong. The other party really knows how to investigate. They actually found out about that identity. Luo Qingtong thought, her eyes cold. When Yi Qianming heard her words, his gaze swept across her face, body and throat. His expression was extremely ugly. Did he really find the wrong person? Yi Qianming's thin lips were tightly pursed. His face was hidden under the black mask, making it impossible for others to see his expression. Only his slightly exposed smooth chin was taut, showing that his mood was not calm at all. Luo Qingtong kept staring at his face as she spoke. The blood in her eyes spun quickly, trying to see his face under the mask. However, in order to avoid the people of Tiandu, Yi Qianming and Bei Qing around him all wore masks that could block others' detection. Chapter 2436. Although this kind of mask was precious in the star field, it wasn't something that didn't exist. The black cloak and hood that Yu Mingqian had worn also had this effect. It was just that this was an inscription tool unique to the Inscription Association. It was different from the mask that Yi Qianxian wore. As Luo Qingtong searched Yi Qianxian's face without any results, Yi Qianxian's figure also moved. He wanted to personally investigate whether or not Luo Qingtong was telling the truth. Shua! Yi Qianxian's figure shot up. Luo Qingtong had been paying attention to his movements the entire time. As his figure shot up, she was very clear that he didn't believe her words and was prepared to personally investigate. Luo Qingtong's eyes turned. She simply wasn't afraid of being investigated. After eating the minor phantom pill, her Adam's apple was protruding and her chest was flat. As long as the other party didn't touch her, it didn't matter how he investigated. Why not take advantage of the situation and directly dispel the other party's doubts? Otherwise, if the other party kept suspecting her, she would be exposed sooner or later. Luo Qingtong didn't want to bring trouble back to the true Spill continent. A 9-star territory and a 6-star territory were simply not on the same level. Moreover, during this period of time, she had heard from Heavenly Wind Mercenary City that the Inscription Association was a giant among the many star fields. Its influence was so great that it covered almost the entire outer space. More importantly, the appearance of the Inscription Association had ended the situation where the various Inscription Master sects had their own way of governing, and unified the Inscription Master sects' plans. Now, the Inscription Association had an extremely high status in the star fields. Any sect or family that wanted the help of an Inscription Master had to go to the Inscription Association and establish good relations with them. In such a situation, directly confronting the other party wasn't a good choice. As Luo Qingtong thought this, her eyes turned. She didn't deliberately block Yi Qianxian's move, but instead deliberately collided with his palm wind. She could see that the other party was probing her, so he didn't use much strength in his movements. In such a case, if she retreated, it would be like exposing herself. As Luo Qingtong thought this, she didn't even summon the life and death yin-yang sword. She directly collided with the opponent's palm wind. As she collided, she deliberately shouted, "Aya, help! Someone is killing me! I am Luo Xiaoqi, everyone come and help me!" Knowing that the other party purposely came to test her identity and did not confirm whether she was Xia Qi or Luo Qingtong felt no pressure at all. With her current identity as Luo Xiaoqi, her influence in Mercenary City was extraordinary. Naturally, countless people were willing to come help her. Sure enough, all the lights of the alley was lit of the night of the nights of the night of the zss, then all of the rooms, teat sound. Its little seventh young master's voice. Tease. Of thus. Brothers, hurry up and grab your weapons. A bunch of messy noises sounded, followed by the sounds of various figures and weapons being unsheathed. They all gathered towards Luo Qingtong's side. Luo Qingtong had lured this person out of the Red Flame mercenary group just for this moment. Chapter 2437. The latter originally came to check whether her male identity was real or not, but he didn't expect that she would deliberately bump into him. With a bang, Luo Qingtong's figure was slapped back by Yi Qianxian's palm. At this moment, a figure suddenly rushed out from the side of the alley. Xiao Qi. Yu Xian's figure floated in the dark alley like an immortal. He anxiously appeared beside Luo Qingtong, standing in front of Luo Qingtong and glaring at Yi Qianxian in front of him. Stop. Who are you? Why did you attack Xiao Qi? Yu Mingqian's eyes were deep. He stared at the man in front of him, wondering who he was and why he suddenly attacked Luo Xiao Qi. Did other people know that the young man had the inscription of God? Or could it be that there was an even more unknown secret on his body? Yu Mingqian's eyes were inexplicable. But the expression on his face was firm and anxious. He stood in front of Luo Qingtong, protecting her behind him. Luo Qingtong's chest was hurt by her own collision. It was not that Yi Qianxian was too strong. On the contrary, the man almost didn't use any strength. He just wanted to check her identity. But damn it, Luo Qingtong didn't expect that although her chest was flattened by the small phantom elixir, Luo Qingtong still felt like her two little white rabbits were patted by Yi Qianxian's palm. It hurt. Luo Qingtong hissed softly. She touched her chest and confirmed that it was flat. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Damn it, she was scared to death. Fortunately, there was no problem with the other party's touch. Otherwise, she would have picked up a piece of tofu and killed herself. If she went up and let others find out that she was a woman, how stupid it would be. After Luo Qingtong felt relieved, she found Yu Xian standing in front of her, trembling and glaring at the man opposite him. Luo Qingtong's brows furrowed. Why was Yu Xian here? Didn't she ask him to stay in the room? But Luo Qingtong didn't have time to think about it. She got up and pushed Yu Xian aside. Then she rubbed her chest and said to Yi Qianxian opposite her, "Now you believe that I'm a man, right? Go. No matter what your purpose is, I'm not the one you're looking for. If you don't go now, you won't get away so easily." As Luo Qingtong spoke, she scanned the surrounding alleyways. Over there, a group of mercenaries who had been alarmed by her had already appeared. Yi Qianxian's eyes slightly. He looked at her coldly and didn't say anything. Then he turned and left. He could clearly feel that he had hit a flat area with his palm just now. No matter how a person's figure was disguised, the difference between a man and a woman was very obvious. If Luo Qingtong was a woman disguised as a man, Yi Qianxian should have seen through her by now. However, his chest was flat. Plus, there was an Adam's apple on her throat and the birthmark on her face. Yi Qianxian pursed his lips tightly. He couldn't help but believe that he had found the wrong person. Since she wasn't the person he was looking for, there was no need for him to stay here any longer. After Yi Qianxian left, Luo Qingtong let out a heavy sigh. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.